All right. Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. It is currently 2:07 p.m. And of course, today's date is the 17th of April 2025. How are you doing this beautiful afternoon? Spring is here. Summer is about to be here. Are you getting ready? All right. With that being said, it is going on right now in the Oval Office. The President of the United States and Prime Minister of Italy are in the current meeting right now. And of course, the press corps is in there. And let's see what they have to say.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I've been briefed on the Florida State University, Tallahassee active shooting. I guess it's an active shooter. Fully briefed as to where we are right now. It's a shame. It's a horrible thing. Horrible that things like this take place. And we'll have more to say about it later. In the meantime, it's an honor to have the Prime Minister of Italy with us, Prime Minister Meloni, who's doing a fantastic job. I would say that she has taken Europe by storm and highly respected. Everybody loves her and respects her, and I can't say that about many people. And she's become a friend, and we really have a great relationship between Italy and ourselves. And we talked about trade. We talked about many, many things during our luncheon, and she'll be saying a few words, but she's a very special person, and it's nice to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for your warm welcome. Thank you for this occasion, which is aimed to strengthen our relation, our friendship that comes from very far. You know, today is April 17, and April 17 marks the anniversary of the agreement that allowed Cristoforo Colombo to make his trip. And I say to remember how ancient are our ties, but also to remind that we both share another fight, which is the fight against the woke and ADI ideology that would like to erase our history. And as I know that we share lots of things on tackling illegal migration, on fighting against synthetic drugs. You know, Italy has been one of the nations that made a plan against fentanyl, for example. But we have been talking about many bilateral topics and things that we can do together, about defense, about economic, about economy, about space, about energy. Italy will have to increase its LNG imports, and also nuclear that we are trying to develop. I think there can be ways to work together, and the Italian enterprises will invest, as they've been doing for many years, as you know. In the next years, I think around 10 billions. That shows how interconnected our economies are. And that's very important, Mr. President. It's not only about Italy, it's about the entire Europe. The exchange between us is a very big one. Investments, trade. It's a topic that we are discussing in this week. But at the end of the day, look, somebody calls me, I was saying it before, such a Western nationalism. I don't know if it is the right word, but I know that when I speak about West, mainly I don't speak about a geographical space. I speak about a civilization. And I want to make that civilization stronger. So I think even if we have some problems, okay, between the two shores of the Atlantic, it is the time that we try to sit down and find solutions. So I want to thank President Trump for having accepted an invitation to pay an official visit to Rome in the near future, and consider a possibility in that occasion to meet also with Europe. The goal for me is to make the West great again. Okay? And I think we can do it together.
We can.
We will keep on work on that. I'm going to close. I want to say only, I'm proud of sitting here as Prime Minister of an Italy that today as a very good situation despite the difficulties, a stable country, reliable country, 1 million more jobs in the last 2 years and a half.
Great.
Inflation is going down, so you forgive me if I promote a bit my country,
Yeah,
but
please.
you're a businessman and you understand me. So migration flows going down 60%. So we are trying to do our best, but I think we can do it even better together. Also on Ukraine, I will close. Together we've been defending the freedom of Ukraine. Together we can build a just and lasting peace. We support your efforts, Donald.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we're doing well in that effort, but we want to get it done, and we'll see if we can. We want to save. On average, think of it, every week 2,500 people are being killed, mostly soldiers, Russian, Ukrainian soldiers. And if we can save those lives, that would be a very good thing. And so we'll see what we can do. And I think we're getting close, but we'll let you know very soon. And you've been very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. President, how much longer does Vladimir Putin have to respond to your ceasefire proposal before you put secondary tariffs or sanctions on Russia?
We'll see what that will be. We're going to be hearing from them this week, very shortly actually, and we'll see. But we want it to stop. We want the death and the killing to stop.
Mr. President, on Jerome Powell, you said that the termination of Jerome Powell cannot come fast enough. He says he won't leave, even if you ask him to.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, please. Question?
Are you trying to remove him, Mr. President?
Yeah, question?
Mr. President, you hit Judge Mosberg in a case against your administration. So the Constitution does not tolerate willful disobedience of judicial order. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, you're going to have to speak to the lawyers. We have great lawyers. I can tell you this, we're doing a fantastic job of getting criminals out of this country who Biden allowed into the country. Hundreds of thousands of criminals, murderers and drug dealers. And I was elected because of the fact, I would say maybe that was the number one factor, a lot of reasons, the economy, a lot of things. But one of the primary reasons I was elected is because I said, I'm going to get the criminals that he allowed to come into our country so stupidly through open borders. I'm going to get them out. And I got a lot of votes, record-setting numbers of votes, as you know. We won everything. The popular vote, all 7 swing states, we won everything. And that's what the public wanted, and that's what I'm doing. But you'll have to speak to the lawyers because it's up to them.
Mr. President, what do you think of the proposal from France?
Say it.
What do you think of the proposal from France and UK of a peace mission in Ukraine with soldiers? And do you think that Italy should take part in it?
Well, I think Italy will have to make that determination, but peace missions are always good with me. I'm okay with peace missions. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, have you discussed what areas of cooperation and discussed with the Prime Minister vis-a-vis Italy and the United States and Europe and the United States? And on China?
We discussed it very briefly. No, we're doing very well with negotiations, I think, with all countries. And Scott could tell you a little bit, but we are doing very well. We have a lot of countries that want to make a deal. Frankly, they want to make deals more than I do. Go ahead, Scott. Would you say something, please?
Yeah, we've got a process in place. We're working on the big 15 economies first. We had a fantastic meeting with Japan yesterday. I believe they've been called with the EU already. And then we have South Korea coming in next week. And I believe India is also talking. That's moving very quickly.
Go ahead.
Ukraine's President Zelensky has said he has evidence that China is supplying weaponry or ammunition to Russia. Do you have any evidence along those lines? And also, he said we could see a minerals deal signed this week. Is that?
Well, we have a minerals deal, which I guess is going to be signed on Thursday, Scott, next Thursday, soon. And I assume they're going to live up to the deal, so we'll see. But we have a deal on that. No, I have no comment on that. I have no idea. That's his statement, not mine.
Mr. President, are you completely about the Israeli attack on Iranian nuclear facilities?
And they said the attack is what?
That you waved off an Israeli plan to attack Iranian nuclear facilities.
I wouldn't say waved off. I'm not in a rush to do it because I think that Iran has a chance to have a great country and to live happily without death. And I'd like to see that. That's my first option. If there's a second option, I think it would be very bad for Iran. And I think Iran is wanting to talk. I hope they're wanting to talk. It's going to be very good for them if they do. And I'd like to see Iran thrive in the future, do fantastically well. I know the Iranian people, they're incredible people. Always have been very smart, very energetic, very successful people. And I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt anybody. I really don't. But Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. It's, pretty simple. It's really simple. We're not looking to take their industry. We're not looking to take their land. All we're saying is you can't have a nuclear weapon. The deal that was made with Obama, that deal would have expired already. It was a terrible deal. It would have expired. And that gave them a clear path to a nuclear weapon. I wouldn't have accepted. That's why I terminated the deal. Number one, it was way too short. When countries are involved, you don't make short-term deals. These are countries with long lives. And I terminated that. And it was a great termination because it didn't allow us to do anything. Once it terminated, you know what the deal was. It was a terrible deal. Really, one of many terrible deals made by the U.S. But no, I'd like to see Iran thrive. And they can do that, I think, very easily, or they can do it the other way, and the other way is not going to be good for them. It's going to be really bad for them.
What do you make of the Nvidia CEO going to China and met with trade officials there?
Well, Jensen's an amazing guy. He's become a friend of mine, and I don't know, he's a person that's very proud of our country. He loves our country. I'm not worried about Jensen at all.
Mr. President, we're holding you in contempt. Will you take steps to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia to the United States and put him in front of a judge?
Well, I'm not involved in it. I'm going to respond by saying you'll have to speak to the lawyers, the DOJ. I've heard many things about him, and we'll have to find out what the truth is. But I will say this, we were inundated by millions of people, many millions of people during the Biden administration. They say 21 million. And a big percentage of those are criminals, serious criminals. I'm not saying just criminal because they came into the border illegally. I'm saying they're criminals at the highest level, murderers. Many of those people murdered more than one person, and they're on the loose. And I was elected to get rid of those criminals, to get them out of our country, or to put them away, but to get them out of our country. And I don't see how judges can take that authority away from a president. We've done an amazing job, Tom Homan, Kristi Noem. We have done an amazing job. Nobody can believe the job we've done. Far greater than what I said. I mean, I got elected on that, but we've done much better. We have right now 99% border. It's a 99%. Nobody thought that would even be, nobody's coming through our border practically. 2 weeks ago, we had 9 people come through, all for medical reasons. We allowed them. We brought them through because one had a heart attack, one had something else, all for medical reasons. We have a great border. We had a great border 4 years ago, but we have a border now that's even tighter, and we did that in a matter of weeks. And no, we have to. We need to get murderers and drug dealers and people that were in jail for horrible. They released jails, Georgia, from all over the world. They released them, not just South America, all over the world.
Oh my goodness.
Many
Georgia,
people come from the Congo.
they released jails. Look at her, listening to him.
All over the world they came in, opened their jails.
He has a plane on the table.
Practically all of their prisoners released.
OG Trump, yo.
Because we had an incompetent administration called the Biden
He's explaining to her.
And to think what they've done to our country. And I was elected to straighten that out, and I'm doing that. But we have activist judges that don't want murderers to be sent out of our country. They don't want killers and drug dealers and drug lords and people from mental institutions. They want them to stay in our country, I guess. I don't know, maybe that's the liberal way, or as they call it nowadays, the progressive way. But I don't think it's the way that our country believes, and that's why I won in a landslide. Okay.
Mr. President, you did say that you are confident these deals will be done, but you also said that you're in no rush. Americans are seeing prices rise. They're seeing it on their bills. How long can they expect that pain to last?
So they've already seen it get much better, because if you were truthful, which you're not, I know you very well, you have gasoline that hit $1.98 yesterday in a couple of states. You have gasoline way down. The price of oil has dropped substantially.
$1.98.
Groceries are substantially down. The price of eggs. When I came in, they hit me with eggs. I just got there. I was here for 1 week, and they started screaming at me, eggs have gone through the roof. I said, I just got here. I was there for 7 days, and I hear that eggs have gone through the roof before I got there. And they were screaming at me, the press, the fake news, like you're fake. And the fake news is screaming at me, like, about eggs. I said, I've only been here, this is my 7th day. And they were right. They went up 87%, and you couldn't get them. They said, you won't have eggs for Easter, which is coming up. Happy Easter, everybody. You won't have eggs for Easter. And we did an unbelievable job, and now eggs are all over the place, and the price went down 92%. And our Commissioner of Agriculture, Brooke, has done a fantastic job. They really have done a fantastic job. So prices haven't gone up. The only thing that's gone up, actually, is interest rates, because we have a Federal Reserve Chairman that is playing politics. Somebody that I've never been very fond of.
Ron Powell.
But he's playing politics. Interest rates should be down now. They should be coming down. In Europe, as you know, they reduced them, I guess 7 times. It looks like they're going to reduce them again and again and again. But our guy wants to play cute. But interest rates
Our guy wants to play
even.
cute.
Maybe they went up just a slight bit.
Jerome Powell.
But that's because of the Federal Reserve, because they're not very smart people.
Do you regret
Go ahead.
Uh-oh.
Yes, sir, please.
Uh-oh.
Go ahead, please.
nominating him, Jerome Powell?
Look, in the first 4 years, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. Stock market went up 88 points. I think he's terrible, but I can't complain because we had the most successful administration economically in the history of our country. I think we're going to do even better this time, because you will see that the numbers that we're taking in are astronomical. We're taking in tremendous amounts of money with the tariffs. We were treated very unfairly on trade, and countries are having a hard time getting used to the fact that they can't do that to us anymore, because we have a real president. We have a president that understands what it's all about. We had presidents that, in some cases, were smart, but they didn't understand business, or they didn't like business, or, it wasn't like a priority. And then you had, like, the last administration, the only thing they were good at was cheating in elections. That's about all they could do. They couldn't do anything. They were useless. They were incompetent. Worst administration in the history of our
Oh, my
country.
God.
Worse than Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter died a happy man.
Oh,
You know
God.
why? Because he wasn't the worst president. Joe Biden was. So I think you're going to see some fantastic numbers when this all happens. It's happening now.
Oh,
Everybody
God.
wants to make a deal. And if they
That is
don't
a
want
sweet
to
tea.
make a deal, we'll make the deal for them. Because that's what's going to happen. We'll just say, this is what it is. But we want to listen to everybody. And I think I can say for Scott and the other people that are working on it that we're listening, and we're going to be very fair to people. But, we're the one that really sets the deal, and that's what we'll be doing. Okay? Yeah, go ahead, please. Please.
A question to our Prime Minister.
Oh, you have a great prime minister. You're so lucky. Yes.
In Italiano.
Yes, that's right.
Italiano.
Presidente Meloni, volevo sapere cosa pensava del fatto che il Presidente Trump ha considerato responsabile Zelensky della guerra in Ucraina, e poi se avete parlato delle spese militari e qual è il limite massimo a cui ha detto che può arrivare l'Italia, le percentuali delle spese militari.
Non abbiamo parlato dei limiti massimi a cui può arrivare l'Italia, abbiamo parlato del fatto che l'Italia sta mantenendo i suoi impegni, perché arriverà al prossimo vertice della NATO con il 2% che era già previsto, che è stato sottoscritto dai governi precedenti, perché siamo una nazione seria, ma non abbiamo parlato poi di quanto vada aumentata questa percentuale, anche se siamo ovviamente consapevoli che insomma, il tema della difesa sia un tema particolarmente importante di questo tempo. Per quello che riguarda la guerra in Ucraina, lei sa come la penso che ci sia chiaramente diciamo ci sia stata un'invasione e che l'invasore da quel punto di vista fosse Putin e la Russia, ma non è questo che diciamo oggi quello che rivela il fatto che insieme vogliamo lavorare, stiamo lavorando per cercare di arrivare in Ucraina a una pace che possa essere giusta e duratura. Penso che questi siano gli sforzi sui quali condividiamo il nostro lavoro, abbiamo condiviso anche oggi il nostro lavoro.
That sounds really good.
That sounded absolutely. That was so beautiful. What the hell? What did she say, please? No, I mean,
said,
it
what the
sounded
hell
great.
did she say?
It was beautifully presented.
I
But
tell y'all.
maybe I could hear what she said. Please, go ahead. Go ahead.
It was about asking.
Guys,
Hold it, hold it.
Have some respect, please.
Thank you.
JD.
No, wait.
JD.
Go ahead.
President Prime Minister Meloni was asked what she thinks about the fact that President Trump holds Zelensky responsible for the war in Ukraine, and Prime Minister Meloni answered, "Well, we have." No, and also you talked about the military spending, and the raising of the military spending, and the first thing Prime Minister Meloni said is that no, actually we didn't talk about the raise in military spending. Of course, Italy will keep its commitments with 2%, and then we will see, because we are absolutely aware of the fact that it is very important
Well, I will do
defense
that.
is very
Wait.
important.
I will
It's
do
very
that.
important.
They've been asking if we decided another defensive
She said, nah.
about the
You're not saying what I say.
spendings,
NATO,
and I said
NATO.
yes, NATO, and I said that Italy is reaching the 2% as it was already decided. We didn't speak about a specific other percentage, but we are aware of the fact that defense is important for the future, and we see what also the work that we are trying to do at the European level.
And I don't hold Zelensky responsible,
No.
but I'm not exactly thrilled with the fact that that war started. That was a war that would have never started if I were president. You'd have millions of people living right now that are dead. You'd have cities that would be open and thriving, and that have their beautiful turrets. Those turrets are the most beautiful in the world, but they're not with us any longer. They're smashed to smithereens, laying on the ground in a million pieces, getting hit by rockets, bombs, and bullets. And so I'm not happy with him, and I'm not happy with anybody involved. I think it's a war. I know it's a war. It didn't happen for 4 years. It was never close to happening. It was never even a thought. And I spoke to President Putin about it a lot. It was the apple of his eye, but there's no way he would have ever gone in if I were president. Now I'm trying to get him to stop because, as you know, Russia's a lot bigger. It's a bigger military force. And if you're smart, you don't go involved and get involved in wars that you can blame the man that was sitting in this seat. Biden, he didn't know what the hell was going on, but I can guarantee you that,
Okay.
and everybody agrees to it, if I were president, that war would have never taken place. I'm not blaming him, but what I am saying is that I wouldn't say he's done the greatest job, okay? I'm not a big fan. I really am. I'm not a big fan. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Presidente Meloni, avete discusso di Cina e della possibilità che l'Europa voglia orientarsi, diciamo, sulla Cina. Mr. President, are you sure about the definition of parasite of European? Would you say again that European parasite?
It's never said.
Would you say again that
The European-
Have you said
parasite?
that Europeans are parasites?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't said. I don't
He
know what.
didn't say it.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
Shout out to the OG, yo. The 45th and the 47th President of the United States, President Trump. He's such an OG, yo.
Please. Go ahead. No, wait, next. Go.
Prime Minister Meloni just said we want to make Europe great again, and we want to do it together with the United
Sure.
West, yeah.
Did you, I guess that's what you said, Mr. Prime Minister, how are you going to do that? And are you looking to do it to counter China, who is really trying to gather influence against?
And a lot of it's having to do with immigration. And I'm not a big fan of Europe and what they've done with immigration at all. And I think they got to get smart, because Europe is being very badly hurt by what they've done with immigration. Now, I'll say this, that the Prime Minister has taken a very tough stand on immigration. And I commented to her before. I said, I wish more people would be like you having to do with that subject, but they're not. Europe is very important to me. Europe is very important to the world. I want Europe to do very well. I think they have to get a lot smarter on immigration.
But we are beginning doing it. You've all seen now the policies of the European Union in the last, let's say, 2.5 years have been changing. Okay, at the beginning we were talking only about how we were redistributing illegal migrants coming to Italy. Now we are talking mainly about how to stop illegal migration, work with the countries of origin and transit, and to return people. The European Commission just did the new rules about repatriations and things like that. So things are changing, thanks also to the example that Italy brought in lowering the rates of illegal migration. So we are working now together. So I'm optimistic on that.
Good. I hope so. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
I'd like to ask President Meloni if you have discussed the option of starting a deal with Italy on satellite communications, and President Trump, if you want to see the Google company growing up.
The Google what?
The Google company.
What about
Google
it?
business. If you want to see it growing up. Separate.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, well, we didn't discuss about Starlink. We've been discussing about defense space. We will work together also in the Mars missions. So there are big things to do together, but we didn't discuss it.
Your conversations with the Prime Minister that changed your mind potentially about tariffs and what you plan to do going forward?
No.
Is there anything the Prime Minister said to you that changed your perspective?
No, tariffs are making us rich. We were losing a lot of money under Biden, trillions of dollars, trillions on trade.
Biden getting his strays,
And
yeah.
now that whole tide has turned. We're making a lot of money. We're taking in a lot of money. Don't forget, we're taking in 25% on cars, 25% on steel, 25% on aluminum, 10% baseline. We put penalties on China for sending us fentanyl. We put penalties on Mexico and Canada, 25% for allowing fentanyl and allowing the borders to be weak. Now we're taking in billions and billions of dollars while I sit here and talk to you. And we didn't take in anything before, other than the tariffs that I put on previous to Biden, which were the tariffs I put on China, where we took in, up until this point, probably $700 billion. They were Trump tariffs. He tried to weaken them. He did everything he could. You know, he got paid money by China, right? The family got paid money. He did. And so I don't know, maybe that was the reason, or maybe it wasn't. But he tried to weaken them, but he couldn't, because there was so much money that his budgets, you know, they couldn't stand not doing it. But I took in the, up till this point, my tariffs on China. Nobody ever took in 10 cents from China. No other president took in 10 cents. I took in more than $700 billion from China. So we're doing very well. I mean, our country's doing very well. They had a bad report today from one of the healthcare companies that had an impact on the stock market. But this isn't about that. This is really, we're building a base. We're building a country like no other. And again, I had the strongest economy in the history of our country by far, history of any country probably, but the history of our country in 4 years. And I think this has a chance to be much better.
Can you just clarify on the mineral field? Will that be signed
I don't know exactly. I'm going to leave that to Scott. What do you think? Where would it be signed and when?
Yeah, we're still working on the details. We're shooting for around April 26th.
Is there any more detail that you could tell us about what's in that deal and how it came together?
It's substantially what we'd agreed on previously when the president was here. We had a memorandum of understanding. We went straight to the big deal, and I think it's an 80-page agreement, and that's what we'll be signing.
President Trump, on rate cuts, can you clarify on rate cuts, do you intend to seek Powell's firing if he doesn't change his stance on rate cuts? Or is that on the table? Or is it
Well, I think he should do the rate cuts because I think if Europe has done it, it puts us at a disadvantage to Europe. I mean, he plays right into their hands. So I think he should do the rate cuts. We don't have really inflation now. I just said the major things are going down. Oil is great. Oil is way ahead of schedule, and that's because of our policies. But oil is down into the $60, $65 range now per barrel. And I told you, in certain states we have less than $2 for gasoline. And food is down. Groceries, as we call it, are down. Other than interest rates, everything's down. Interest rates are pretty flat. They're not. It's not that they're up, but we should be better than flat. We should. If he would lower the interest rate, I think it would have a good impact on that too. But the costs are down. We have very little inflation. I would say we have essentially no inflation. Hard to have inflation when oil goes down, and oil goes down. When Biden came in, oil went through the roof. That's what caused our problem. That and his very dumb spending. But when the oil prices go down, and they have gone down a lot, we've gotten it down really good. We've opened it up and we've gotten them down. And that means that people driving cars are going to be paying $2 and $2.50 instead of $4.50. And, you know, even at the end, they tried just for the purpose of the election to get it down. But they had really lost that sucker. It was not good. But if they had won, oil right now would be at $7 or $8 because of their policy. And we're going to be at about $2. Could be even a little bit less than that. And you're starting to see it. So I don't know how you can have inflation when oil has come down quite a bit. And I would say the Fed really owes it to the American people to get interest rates down. That's the only thing he's good for. And he would have an effect on that if he lowered them. And I think at some point he will. He's going to have a lot of political pressure. You know, they are political also. And I think there's a lot of political pressure for him to lower interest rates. Okay? Yeah, go ahead. Please.
Do you think that Italy can be your best ally in Europe? And also, do you ever notice when you walk into step on hands?
Only if the prime minister remains the prime minister can it be our best. she's doing a great job. And yeah, certainly one of our great allies, not just in Europe, anywhere. She's a fantastic person and doing a great job. And our relationship is great. And we have a lot of Italians in this country, I tell you, and they like Trump, and they voted for Trump. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Yes, you just witnessed the OG. Okay. All right now. You just saw the OG, the 45th, now the 47th, have a conversation with the Prime Minister of Italy. Listen to this. Like, I want you to see what happened right here when he said, well, it's time for questions. Hold up.
And we'll see, but we wanted to stop. And so we'll see what we can do. And I think we're getting close, but we'll let you know very soon. And you've been very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you. you. Any questions?
Like, take a look at her expression. This is the Prime Minister of Italy. Take a look at her expression when Trump said, any question. The way the media, the way the press corps attacked the president, she was so surprised. She was like, whoa, I'm not doing this, or I'm not used to doing this. Take a look at her expression.
Think of it, every week 2,500 people are being killed, mostly soldiers, Russian, Ukrainian soldiers. And if we can save those lives, that would be a very good thing. And so we'll see what we can do. And I think we're getting close, but we'll let you know very soon. And you've been very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions?
You see that? She's like, whoa. Because Trump is playing at the highest level. This is the highest level in the world. Okay, so you have to come with your A game. He's used to it. It's like another day. Another day at work. All right, with that being said, we are going to see what CNN is talking about concerning the Feds and if the interest rate is going to be slashed, because a lot of people are slashing their interest rate now. A lot of countries in Europe are slashing interest rate. So hopefully Jerome Powell slash interest rate. Hopefully he does.
Bill, let's show everybody the numbers there. The Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell spoke today and seemed to precipitate what we're seeing on the street. Explain.
Yeah, I think markets are reacting, one, to reality on some level, which is that nothing's really changed over the course of the two rather calm market days that we've seen. There is still the largest tariffs in more than a century. There's still an ongoing trade war with China, and everybody's waiting for some development on negotiations on bilateral deals or the potential for them. What changed was mostly the Fed chair coming out and making very clear this point. Take a listen.
The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. Both survey and market-based measures of near-term inflation expectations have moved up significantly, with survey participants pointing to tariffs.
Now, Casey, on top of that, there were two additional points Powell made building off of what you just heard that I think are extremely critical to pay attention to right now. One, the expectations are that situation he was describing on economic conditions and inflation is a situation that he said expected to play out over the balance of the year. So it's going to be longer term. It's not going to be something that turns around immediately. The second is he raised the prospect of these Feds, quote, dual mandate, their statutory requirements as the Fed, at some point coming into tension with one another. So the Fed has two roles, right? You keep prices stable, you deal with inflation, and you also keep employment low, full employment. When those two things run into one another, what he's saying, to translate, is the potential for stagflation, something we haven't seen in a real tangible way since the 1970s. It is the worst nightmare for a Fed chair because what they can do with rates, what they can do with QE, handles one of those issues. When they're running into one another, which isn't supposed to happen, they're out of tools. You're kind of like a soccer goalie that has to pick on a penalty kick which way you're going to dive and just hope you pick the right direction. That is a pretty stark warning, and I think that, more than anything else, is what markets are paying attention to.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, the Fed chairman is so measured in the way that he speaks. It makes the weight of a statement like this all that much heavier. Obviously, we have other public figures who are not so restrained and careful with the words that they choose. He does not share that characteristic. Phil Mattingly, always grateful to have you start the show. Thanks very much. All right, our panel is here. CNN legal analyst Elliot Williams, CNN political director and our Washington bureau chief David Chalian, CNN political commentator, former Biden White House communications director Kate Bedingfield is here, and CNN senior political commentator Scott Jennings back again. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. David Chalian, let me start with you, big picture on this economic situation. Obviously, there are a number of battles that the White House seems eager to fight with Democrats. We're going to get to some of that later on in the show. But what is going on in the economy represents a really fundamental risk for President Trump, for Republicans. And there has been no small amount of chatter of them saying, well, we'll do this with the tariffs. It'll cause the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates to the floor. Businesses will explode and the economy will take off. The Fed chair today seems to be saying, yeah, no, sorry.
I mean, to hear the Fed chairman just say so clearly that this policy is likely to lead to higher inflation and slower growth, it's like at the core, the two things that Donald Trump promised Americans on the campaign trail last year would be prices would come down and there would be robust economic growth. And the Fed chair today is in direct contradiction with that if he turns out right. I mean, that's his prediction of what these policies will be. If that is right, I think that poses a political problem, as you note, yes, for Donald Trump, but really far more immediate in the 26 midterms is for his party up on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, well, and it also presents a problem for a lot of Americans, Scott Jennings. I mean, again, the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, picks his words very carefully. He also has, there has been no small amount of tension between him and President Trump. I would just point to this Wall Street Journal headline from November 7th, 2024. You may recall that's about the time that Donald Trump won the election, when Powell says that he won't step down if he's asked to by Trump. I don't imagine that the president is very happy about what the Fed chairman had to say today. Do you see a brewing standoff?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect tickets to the Easter egg roll if I were Chairman Powell right now. Look, I of course, and I'm sure President Trump's going to react negatively to this statement today because he sees it much differently. He sees this as a long-term transformation of the economy. He sees a number of investment announcements that have happened that disprove all the apocalyptic doom and gloom, and he has already said he's willing to accept some short-term pain. And he's asked the American people, or at least his supporters, to accept that as we transform the economy to the benefit of the working class. However, the problem is and will be the trajectory of the economy in the minds of voters come next summer, late summer, and the fall. I think they actually will accept a continued amount of turbulence if they think the trajectory is good. That's really the measurement of how people feel. I don't think all the problems have to be fixed because they know there were myriad problems under the previous administration. But if they think they're on the right track, they'll give them some more leash. If they think they're on the wrong track, that's when you start to run into problems with the voters.
That may be, but I think the challenge Trump's going to have here, I mean, there's so few things that a president truly has control over in office. You make all these promises on the campaign trail, you come into office, and then you have to deal with the world as it is. The thing that is so interesting about this is that the chaotic implementation of these tariffs is a huge piece of what's driving the uncertainty in the market and the challenges here. And so it may be true traditionally that if people feel like the economy is moving in the right direction, they're willing to give the president leeway. But Trump has stood up and thrown his arms around this and said, this is my problem. I created it because in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, things are going to be better for you. I think it's going to be really tough in the fall of 2026 to ask voters to say, well, just hold your nose and just wait. And it's going to get better.
And moreover, it's to pick up on both David's and your points, Kate, the certainty with which Donald Trump came in saying, look, in effect, I alone can fix it, to echo the point that he made several years ago, that what I will implement will ultimately fix the economy and make things better for all Americans. Yes, he has some runway, but that runway is getting much, much shorter.
I do think some of the chaos may seem reduced if over the next few weeks they do roll out a series of announcements with trade deals with individual countries. I mean, they're obviously in deal-making mode. This is what he was put on this earth to do, make deals. Countries are coming to the table. So if they start to say, here's our deal with Japan, here's our deal with Vietnam, here's our deal with all these countries, and we're actually building a coalition to isolate China, I actually think that could make it seem like the chaos is being reduced and people start to see the end game here, which is a stronger America and a weaker China on the internet.
Fair enough.
That would also require him, but that would require him to stick to whatever deal he negotiates. I mean, part of the challenge is, you see the Commerce Secretary or the Treasury Secretary come out and say, well, actually, no, there's going to be an exception on chips and there's going to be an exception on phones. And then Trump says, well, I don't really like the word exception. So, I think Trump has a credibility challenge here. It may be that he's able to successfully negotiate all these trade deals. I'm not sure the market is going to believe him, even when he comes out and says these are the terms, because he himself hasn't stuck to his previously set agenda here.
And the bigger point is that not all trade deals are created equal. And yes, we can strike trade deals with Sri Lanka and Vietnam, but none of these countries have the power, to harm the American economy that China does, and without a consideration of China. Yeah.
And just to your point about Powell, you showed that Wall Street Journal headline, I think it was from the election time. I think it was just yesterday or the day before, Treasury Secretary in Argentina talked about starting to interview or come up with a list of people of thinking of new candidates because when Powell's term ends next year, Trump is going to be in position to. And the fact that it was like out there yesterday from the Treasury Secretary already seeding the ground of trying to look at the post-Powell era. To Scott's point, I would be very surprised if Donald Trump did not react negatively to what the Fed chairman said today.
Well, and Scott, can you just be realistic with me? I understand you're presenting how the administration is looking at this. We're going to talk for a second about deportations. We're going to talk later in the show about transgender athletes, right? There are all these fights that the administration is generating, is picking in many ways. Realistically, is the economy the riskiest ground for the president right now? Is this the biggest question mark for him on a very long list of very contentious issues?
Of course, the economy is always the riskiest ground for any president because you tend to rise and fall based on how people think you did with it. So when you make sweeping changes to the way our economy works, the way it's going to work around the world, there is a lot of risk in that, but there could also be a lot of reward in it if people see the end game, which is we isolated China, the working class feels like better jobs are coming back to decimated communities. So there's a lot of reward here, but it could take some time to get there. I will say on the other fights, I think they're on the right side of virtually every fight they're picking. I mean, you mentioned the some of the cultural fights they're picking. Immigration's his best issue right now. These are not inconsequential matters. I mean, on a lot of these things, he's on the 80, the Dems are on the 20.
Exactly, especially when it comes to transgender issue, men and women's sports. Like, what is that?
And the junior senator from Wisconsin has stepped over it repeatedly.
Anyway, Judge Clooney was interviewed and asked what happened with Biden. Y'all remember what happened between Judge Clooney and Joe Biden?
George Clooney is currently appearing on Broadway as Edward R. Murrow in a stage production of Good Night and Good Luck, which highlights the importance of journalism as a check against government corruption, also asserting the importance of facts and evidence and careful, diligent news broadcasting. Good Night and Good Luck opened not even 2 weeks ago and already has broken the weekly record for the highest grossing play in the history of the United States. I sat down yesterday with George Clooney at the Winter Garden Theater to discuss Murrow, journalism, courage, the op-ed he wrote last July calling for President Biden to drop out of the presidential race, and the state of the nation today.
I can't believe that the movie Good Night and Good Luck was 20 years ago.
20 years ago, I know. 20 years ago this year.
Yeah. What would make you, because obviously you didn't start doing this the day after Trump got elected, right?
No,
you started 2 years ago.
Yeah.
What would make you want to rewrite that and turn it into a Broadway show?
Well, I can make the argument that this storyline and what we are dealing with hasn't really ever gotten out of the news. You know, starting with Jefferson and Adams, I think we've been having these arguments about how we inform ourselves and holding truth to power. So I just felt like doing the telling this story again and talking about the story again. You know, Grant and I watched the movie about a year and a half ago. We were, for some reason, there was a screening someone did and asked us to show up and comment on it. And we were watching it and we thought, boy, this is still everything we talked about then and that counted in 1954 still counts. And we thought, well, we've been trying to do it as a play for a while, and then we thought, well, it's not a bad time to talk about these things, holding truth to power, and the importance of journalism. You know, and I grew up as a son of a journalist. I grew up running a teleprompter in the.
Oh, you did that?
In the newsroom at my dad's news. You know, it's crazy. At the time, you know, it was like you would just feed paper in, and then if they cut a scene, there was a paper cutter at the end of it, and you would just cut it and tape it.
I can't believe you did how old were you when you did teleprompter?
12.
Seriously?
Yeah.
And people might not remember, but you and your dad actually did journalism together when you went to Darfur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I would argue that my father did journalism. In fact, I called my dad up. We were going to go with some reporters, and they bailed out because there was
because it's dangerous.
There was a threat, and they didn't want to go. And so I called my dad, and I said, you know, he used to talk about when he was a young guy. He did a news story, and it got bumped for Elizabeth Taylor's story.
Mm-hmm.
And he was pissed off about it. And I said, I'll tell you what, Pop. And I talked about that. And I said, remember how that worked before? And he said, yeah. I said, so let's go to Darfur, because no one could get in there then. I said, you and I go in, and you be the newsman and I'll be Elizabeth Taylor, and we'll get the story out.
Did you first hear about Murrow from your dad?
Yeah. My dad, when I was a kid, my dad would stand on a chair when I was 6 years old and do the Box of Lights and Wires speech.
Oh, really?
The whole thing, it's like a half an hour or something. And it's actually longer than that. He would do his selected version of the Box of Lights and Wires. He would do that, and he would do Julius Caesar, and what was the other? And he would do Hamlet. He would stand on a chair and do those three things for us. So I grew up really aware of it. Also, my father held high Murrow and Cronkite because...
Although they hated each other.
Yeah, of course. but the reason was because Cronkite also was a journalist who, when Johnson didn't run for office again, he said, well, if I've lost Cronkite, I've lost the country. He was another of those sort of most trusted men in America.
Yeah.
And my father was a great and good friend with. We all became really good friends with Walter late in life,
So you have a lot of acting and directing and producing awards, but in the playbill here, all it says is that your last time in an equity theater was in June 1986, a play called Vicious at Steppenwolf. He has never appeared on Broadway, so buckle up.
That's it. I think that's a pretty fair assessment of my theater credentials.
Were you especially nervous?
Sure. Look, this is, it's a funny thing, because I do speaking gigs for our foundation to raise money. I'm in front of much bigger crowds of this all the time for an hour at a time and speaking, but it's sort of off the cuff and you have to kind of be entertaining a little bit. This is a very different thing. There is every single show, we have a group of people, a lot of times it's young kids, who know these speeches by heart.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And journalism students who come in, and if you screw it up, they let you know. They really, I had a kid come over and he goes, he didn't say that. He said this. And I go, I know I messed it up. And it's hard to ad-lib, Murrow. So there's people really hold that, I don't know, they hold those speeches to their heart. It's an interesting thing. You can feel the audience kind of lean forward when you hear certain things. It doesn't matter what political bend you are on. When you hear things like, we must not confuse dissent with disloyalty.
Yeah.
We must remember always that accusation is not proof and that conviction depends upon evidence and due process of law. And we will not walk in fear one of another and won't be driven by fear into an age of unreason. I think those are extraordinarily powerful words for who we are at our best. Even now, I have some knuckleheads, saying, well, he thinks he's a journalist. I don't. I have never claimed to be a journalist. And I just go, we have a montage at the end. I say, you should come see it. You're in it. We use your words. We don't change it. We don't tell people what to think.
Yeah.
It's not taken out of context. We just say, here it is. You guys can decide what you want with it. I think that's a proper way of doing it.
The montage is interesting. I'm in it, saying something about a chilling effort or something like that, but it's decades of news. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's people just commenting. Sometimes it's obvious lies being told to the American people. There's the Dominion software stuff. Mm-hmm. There is people maintaining that Joe Biden is fit as a fiddle. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. You guys must have taken care in what you picked so as to try to not be anything other than this is everything.
What Grant and I thought when we were putting that together was, that frog in the water and you turn up the heat.
Yeah.
So when you first start and you see Lucille Ball, it is funny. And people do laugh in the audience when they see her. And they should, because it's innocent and sweet. And then as the history of our watching television goes, and we were watching it happen, and you see all the, Kennedy's assassination and man landing on the moon, and you see sort of these amazing moments. And you see goofy things too. But then there's this moment it turns. So the O.J. Chase and Jerry Springer, and people are laughing, and I always look at them when they laugh, because now you're laughing at they're laughing at people's expense. They're laughing at cruelty. And from that moment on, it becomes much more about how we decide to inform ourselves and how we decide to talk about people. I think and it relates all the way to this point we're at right now, which is it's not just about trying to, fix, questionable problems, but it's also about being cruel. The cruelty is the point. I think the idea is if you make it cruel enough, people won't, won't want to come to the country or any of those things. And we may be very effective in that tool. So I thought that the montage in a way was us slowly understanding how we all participated in letting this idea of the wild, wild west,
What's also interesting about it is that one of the themes of the show is the pressure that Bill Paley, the chairman of CBS, was under, and he supports Murrow up until he wins against McCarthy, and then Paley pulls the plug and lets him go. And those same pressures are going on right now, except we see big corporations, bigger than just CBS, writing checks.
That's an interesting thing. I had conversations. We've had CBS reporters here who are grateful for the play, and certainly, as you understand, because you're as a reporter and as a newsman, you see it. There are much higher paid people trying to, protect their jobs, trying to protect their business, and I understand it. And Paley had to do all those things as well. And there is a balance. Patty Chayefsky wrote about it with the balance between commerce and news. It's always been there, and it's been a big issue. The questions I had for the CBS guys, because they're really facing it right now, was if it's a payment, that's one thing. That's billionaires paying billionaires, and who cares?
Yeah.
The question is, do you apologize? Because I don't think you can be 60 Minutes or, I don't think a news organization can apologize for doing their job. I don't think you can do that. And so, and thus far they haven't, and hopefully they won't,
One of the things that Good Night and Good Luck re-establishes is, however much Murrow is deified in our culture, and especially by journalists, his story is actually a tragic one.
Oh yeah, he loses.
He loses. I mean, he wins against McCarthy, or McCarthy loses, at least, and Murrow's part of that, but he loses his show.
Yeah.
By 1961, he's working for the United States Information Agency, and by 1965, he's dead.
That's right. And McCarthy was dead even sooner, from
drinking.
From drinking.
Yeah.
Look, nobody really wins in this one, except this, and we're here doing this play because there was a standard set by a journalist who said, "I'm not going to cave, and it will cost us our jobs." And he's not a dummy. He knew what he was up against, and look. I respond, and most of the people I know respond to actual courage. And that's actual courage. This is a guy that was the first person into, I think it was Auschwitz, but one of the camps, broadcaster there. He broadcast from the tops of buildings during the London Blitz. Brave man.
Yeah.
Great writer. And honestly, to see him say, we're gonna go, and word for word, he said, we're gonna go with the show because the terror is right here in this room.
Yeah.
And that's a courage that I certainly, am attracted to and watching.
You yourself did something that a lot of people would call brave when you wrote your op-ed.
Well, I don't know if it was brave. It was a civic duty, because I found that people on my side of the street, I'm a Democrat. I was a Democrat in Kentucky, so I get it. When I saw people on my side of the street not telling the truth, I thought that was time to...
Are people still mad at you for that?
Some people, sure. It's okay. Listen, the idea of freedom of speech, the specific idea of it is, you can't demand freedom of speech and then say, but don't say bad things about me.
Right.
That's the deal. You have to take a stand if you believe in it. Take a stand for it, and then deal with the consequences. That's the rules. And so when people criticize me, they criticize me because of my stance against the war 20 years ago, and so people picketed my movies and they put me on a deck of cards, and and I have to take that. That's fair. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with criticism for for where I stand. I defend their right to criticize me as much as I defend my right to criticize them.
You were in the news recently. There's a book that says that after somebody on Morning Joe said that the op-ed, it sounded more like Obama than it sounded like you.
Oh, yeah.
That this report said that you called up a producer at MSNBC and yelled at the producer.
Right.
Is that accurate?
That never happened. Now, it's an interesting thing. Here's a funny thing about this. You're writing a book, and all I have to do is tell the truth. I have emails. I was ticked off when it was Mika Brzezinski, who I like, a perfectly nice woman, but she said that, that President Obama was behind me writing the op-ed, and that's not true at all. It has no basis in fact. And I wrote Mike Barnacle, and I just said, what is that about? And Mike just said, I don't know, I know. And I said, the one thing you know about me is that I don't take my marching orders from anybody. And that's the only person I know over there. And I wrote him, we have a 4-email exchange. And then this guy says, I called up a producer who I don't know how to call a producer there. I don't know any producer there. And I yelled at them, which isn't true. And here's the problem with that. What that does is it calls into question any other facts in his book. Mm. And that's the thing about what Murrow does, too. He talks about this constantly. Reliable sources. How do you, back your information? There's a whole story that these guys try to run that Murrow says you don't have it.
One other thing about your op-ed I just want to ask, because you called for a robust primary, mini primary. Yeah. I know there were a lot of people that wanted that. Obama and Nancy Pelosi were saying so publicly that that's what they wanted after Biden dropped out. But the way Biden dropped out, immediately endorsing Kamala Harris, that didn't happen. That didn't get to happen. Do you think it would have been better if there had been some sort of contest?
Yeah. If you think about it, she may have ended up winning that contest. And here's the problem that we were facing.
Now they got a problem. You lost. The Democrat lost. Joe Biden lost. Kamala Harris lost. Trump won the election. Okay. Let's move on. All right. But let's listen to what he has to say.
With that, it's very hard to, whether or not you agree that that administration was successful or not, that's a different thing. But the perception was, and how they were running was that it was a failed administration. I could argue that it's not, but that's a different argument. You can't run against yourself, right? And that's why that was a difficult campaign. It's hard to run against yourself and say, well, yeah, I disagree with all this stuff. And in fact, impossible, because you're also not there to try and run down her president at the time. So it was a very difficult campaign. I think we should have seen from some people that I think we have some really good governors, and I would have liked to have seen an expedited, quick primary. I think we would have sustained it, and she may have come out on top. I don't know.
Who do you have your eyes on?
I really, there's one person in particular I think is spectacular. There are a few. I like Andy Bashir. I like.
Oh, you're Kentucky. I'm
a Kentucky guy. Yeah, I like him. He's a good guy, and they're smart. And he's won in a red state. He's a Democrat. I like Gretchen. I think is very good. But who I think is levitating above that is Wes Moore. I think he is the guy that he's handled this tragedy in Baltimore beautifully. He's 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan, active duty. He speaks sort of beautifully. He's smart. He ran a hedge fund. He ran the Robin Hood Foundation. He's a proper leader. And Democrats, the thing is, we say Democrats fall in love and Republicans fall in line. Although I think Republicans have fallen in love a little bit. I like him a lot. I think he could be someone we could all join in behind. We have to find somebody rather soon, because we need to redo. Look, the other side, the side that I'm, that I don't support, won, and they are, running through government and doing their thing. So it's our job now to put together a proper team to stand up, because we're right now polling very poorly, and
the show it's not heavy-handed on the Trump.
We don't mention his name.
Yeah, there are no, whatever parallels there might be, whatever echoes or rhyming there might be, that's for the viewer to come up with on their own.
Well, there's an interesting thing, these aren't just, when it came out as a movie, it was about, it was holding truth to power in the sense that at that moment, the executive branch and the legislative branch and the judicial branch were not holding the administration to power in 2003 about going to war in Iraq.
Yeah.
They weren't. And we required the Fourth Estate to hold them to power. And remember, there was embedding journalists at the time. There was a lot of confusion, but there were still good, solid journalists holding, truth to power. And that's why we wrote the movie about that. And so this play is basically talking about literally how do we inform ourselves and holding truth to power. That's the number one thing you can do. And when I was growing up as a kid, my dad had one rule, and it was it. He just said, I don't care what you do. I don't care. You can be anything you want to be, but you have to defend people with less power than you, and you have to challenge people with more power. That's it. If you do that, you win in life. And I try to do that. I fail a lot at it, but I try to do it, and I believe in it,
Has your dad seen the show?
No, he's coming next week or the week after. I'm excited for him to see it because originally when Grant and I first wrote it, it was a real tribute to my dad. So I'm excited for him to be here to see it.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thanks for coming up.
Okay, so that was partially a promo for his play. And also he spoke about the Democratic Party or the Democrat Party and what they have to do. He's a big donor when it comes to helping the Democrat Party. So, of course, he has a say. If you're donating to a political party, you definitely have a say. And, history has shown that George Clooney is definitely a big stepper when it comes to donating to the Democrat Party. Anyway, with that being said, let's keep going.
And get this from?
Who knows where he gets it from? It doesn't make sense according to the science. It doesn't make sense according to humanity. And it's time.
All right. So, of course, they have something to say about RFK Jr., Bobby. All right.
I think for all of the nation to stand up and say so. Look, Dr. George Benjamin came out. He's the executive director of the American Public Health Association, and he said that Secretary Kennedy should be fired or resign. I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. Day after day, we hear another travesty that's happening to public health. We hear about funding cuts of critical programs. We have a whole population that's been dehumanized and disgraced, if you will. And quite frankly, public health is sick of it. And increasingly in our circles, we're talking about pushing back, asserting. Already during the pandemic, we saw an assassination, if you will, of the integrity of public health science. You saw an anti-science culture fomented in the U.S. government. And it's like we've fallen off of a cliff, and where will it end?
It is amazing to me, Chair Michael and Abel, that the Trump administration and all of their merit-based whatever, could not find someone with actual qualifications or at the very least deference to the people who have qualifications to be in this role. I mean, to Dr. Purnell's point, this is Christopher Banks, the CEO of Autism Society of America, claiming autism is, quote, preventable is not science-based. Autism is not a chronic disease, nor a childhood disease. It is a lifelong developmental condition. It is not an epidemic, nor should it be compared to the...
But we get it. Okay. They're saying there's no whatever, you cannot prevent. But it's like, why is everybody being diagnosed though? Every child is like getting diagnosed. As soon as your kid isn't talking by like 2, 3, oh, they're on the spectrum. Oh, she's on the spectrum. No. Every kid gets to talk different ages. Some people talk early, some people talk late. My daughter started talking really late. And when we had the evaluation, of course, she wasn't talking to the person who was evaluating her because she was what? It was 2 going on 3 or something like that. She was literally 2. And my daughter was looking at me because she wasn't going to look at a stranger who was evaluating her. And the next thing, like, well, she's on the spectrum. Bro, she doesn't know you. She's 2 years old. But yeah, I don't know if like they're not actually evaluating these kids the way they're supposed to, and they just literally say, well, this person is autistic or whatever. I don't know, but that was my experience when my daughter had an evaluation. Like,
COVID-19 pandemic, and using language like that perpetuates falsehood, stigma, and stereotypes. All he has to do is just say, I'm going to let the people who know about this talk about this. But he did that instead.
Look, I'm not a doctor. I would probably do this a little differently. I think science matters. It's important. I think we should probably use this opportunity, especially with the growth in AI, to figure out how we can better address some of the needs of children with autism. I mean, Doc, you would know better than me where this begins. Let's put the focus there and figure out how we prevent this going forward. The technology, I think, is increasing to do that. So that's probably what I would advise the HHS secretary to do. A lot of families have to deal with this. A lot of parents worry when they pass on who's going to take care of their children. This is a very sensitive issue. And so I would just have a very different outlook in addressing
What's going to happen now? I mean, he says he's going to find the cause of autism in this year, this calendar year.
Well, first, Abby, he's been on the job for 90 days, a little less than 90 days. So I think that we should just give him the benefit of the doubt, don't you?
No,
You're
no,
not
no, 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 no.
Can I ask you, like, I'm gonna sit here.
Hold on, one at a time. Hold on. Let me hold on.
We're gonna let him talk.
Let him talk. Second, okay? Let me just let him express what he's going to express, and you can rebut
to
it.
Health and Human Services, you're going to be here saying the same thing. It just seems like everything President Trump does, you're going to oppose, no matter what. And
it
look,
seems like everything he does, you're going to support blindly
No,
and
not at all.
foolishly,
I'm saying-
and it leads
what
the
do you-
rest of
what
us
I'm-
down the
what I'm
plane.
saying
This
is
is
let's
the
give
challenge.
this man
This
a
is the
benefit of
challenge.
the
He
doubt.
built
Look.
this cabinet off of loyalty, not off of expertise. He is politically inept, and his first job in government was as president of the United States. And you see how dangerous that is to have a reality TV star elevated to this post and play with our health in the process. Let me just explain to you what's happening right now. The HHS cuts. Right now, they have already cut programs from the CDC that were studying infectious diseases and studying STIs. They are going through looking for any little thing that has anything to do with diversity, equity, inclusion. Yes. They are the didn't earn it hires. We have a qualified doctor here, a qualified medical profession who works in the medical profession telling you this is a problem. And yet still you are spitting in our face trying to convince us it is rain. You have to at least, but can you please be sensible and say this is a problem for the American people. It's not a political issue, Abel. This is a matter of
You can't say give someone a benefit of the doubt when we already have proof in Texas that 2 children are dead from a measles outbreak that should not have happened, because you have a secretary who has consistently and systematically undermined the science around vaccines. How can we give him a benefit of the doubt when he spent decades being a charlatan when it has come to science and public health issues? Here is a person during his nomination process who espoused medical racism. He said that Black and African American people had different immune systems. Excuse me, sir, there's no room for a benefit of the doubt. As she was just saying, we have gutted programs at both the CDC and the FDA around smoking. Do you know the leading preventable cause of death in the United States? Tobacco. And you gut the very opposite on the benefit.
He's not going anywhere. He's
Abel,
there.
On the benefit of the doubt, I want to play a little bit more about what he's been saying recently. These are some of the claims that he's been making.
This whole generation of kids is damaged by chronic disease. When my uncle was president, 3% of Americans were obese. Today, it's around 70%. Today, we're the 4th most obese country in the world. People get measles because they don't vaccinate. They get measles because the vaccine wanes. The vaccines wane about 4.8% per year.
So almost everything, I'll give him the chronic disease. I mean, I don't even know, maybe that is true or not, but almost everything else that he said was false in that statement. He is speaking on behalf of the health agencies of this country.
He's wrong on obesity.
He is wrong on obesity.
Wrong
It's not.
Can we agree on
It is
that?
not 70%.
Well, guess, let me share. Let me share
I
with
mean,
you.
here's the thing.
Secretary Kennedy is going to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services for the next couple of years. How do we work with him to make sure that we're moving in the right direction?
We don't enable him. We don't enable him. And how do we?
What about just having standards for knowing your facts before you speak?
Yes.
Abby, I agree. Abby, I agree.
Let me. No, hold on. What about that?
I agree with that, Abby. I mean, look, I started following Secretary Kennedy about 2-3 years ago. I didn't even know who I had heard of him, but I started following him on his Make America Healthy Again, on food, on the way the federal government says you can eat this, on the food guide and everything. And I started watching and listening, and he makes a lot of valid points.
I just pointed out.
So in my mind,
hold on, guys.
a lot of valid points.
We cannot.
Follow the money.
We cannot all speak at the same. We really cannot all speak at the same time. I'm sorry to say, but we have to do it one at a time. Okay. Let me just one quick point, and Mandela, you have to get in. I just pointed out that you were nodding your head to a lot of what he said. It's not true, most of it, right? Knowing that, I mean, shouldn't that give you pause when he tells you things that might sound true, but really aren't true because he's playing to your desire to believe certain information that confirms your priors?
I'm relating it, Abby, to the health side of food and diet.
Which is very important.
I was nodding, and I kind of disagreed with him, and now I agree with him.
Yeah, but
we are eating junk today.
I get it. We're eating junk, but the connection that he makes between those things and health outcomes are not always accurate. Mandela.
Well, I was going to say, how do we expect to find a cure these root cause of autism if we're cutting $40 billion from HHS anyway? How do we plan to stop and mitigate any of the health crises that we face if we're going to be cutting $40 billion from the agency? It is irresponsible, and all we're going to be left with is WebMD, and that's effectively what we have right now.
At the same time that all of this is happening, a top NIH nutrition researcher studying ultra-processed foods departs, citing censorship under Kennedy. This is somebody who is working on the very issue that you say is super. He's gone.
I think that,
he is gone. He says that specifically, I experienced censorship in the reporting of our research because of agency concerns that it did not appear to fully support preconceived narratives of my agency's leadership about ultra-processed food addiction.
That doesn't deserve a benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Right there.
I think at the core of the idea of Make America Healthy Again, I think is a noble mission, dieting better, eating better food standards. I think those are good things, but I do believe you really have to listen to people who are sort of experts on these things. I don't disagree with Kennedy's sort of prognosis that, hey, Americans aren't as healthy, cancer rates are increasing with younger people, but you need the experts to sort of help inform what the best decisions are to address those issues.
Now they're going after RFK. Okay.
Breaking news this hour about Israel, Iran, and the President of the United States, as the New York Times is now reporting Israel had plans to strike Iran's nuclear sites as soon as next month. But President Trump put the kibosh on that in favor of negotiating with Iran, something that we've seen him talk about in recent days, including inside the Oval Office just on Monday. One of the reporters who broke that story, the New York Times' Maggie Haberman, is here with me tonight. What is your reporting show about just how close Israel was to moving ahead with this?
Sure. So there's a team of us who reported on this story, and Israel wanted to move ahead with these strikes, but really couldn't do it without U.S. support. And that was widely known within the Trump administration. And President Trump, yes, he has been very bellicose about Iran, but he has also been very clear that he doesn't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon, but he also would like a deal with Iran. It is something that he has talked about for a while, and he, waved Israel off of this essentially in terms of the U.S. supporting these strikes because he wants to try a diplomatic route. And
And no matter what you say about Trump, never forget he tries to have a dialogue with every country before escalation, okay? Take a look at what he's doing with Iran right now. You hear him saying, you know what? No attacks on Iran. For now. He said it with the Prime Minister of Italy in the Oval Office. It was like, we want to try the diplomatic route first. And if that doesn't work, option 2 is definitely going to be bad for Iran. However, what I'm trying to point out here is this is Trump. Trump actually doesn't want war or anything that pertains to some sort of escalation. He wants to talk. He wants to make a deal. Of course, you can have back and forth when it comes to negotiations, like what is going on now between China and the United States, back and forth. Tariff 145%. Some people say it might even go up to 190%. But it's just the back and forth when it comes to negotiation. This isn't war. This is just trade negotiations. So, with that being said, there is a breaking news. There's been a shootout in a university in Florida. Check this out.
A new hour with this Fox News alert, a live scene in Florida right now. We are monitoring reports of an active shooter situation at a Florida State University. That is right there in Tallahassee, where you're looking live. A Florida law enforcement person is telling us right now that a person is in custody, but no specifics on whether or not that person is the shooter. So we are waiting on a lot more information on a developing scene down there in Tallahassee. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Sandra Smith in New York. And Bill, great to have you back today.
Great to be with you. Wish we were here on better circumstances with this breaking news right now. I'm Bill Malugin. John Roberts has the day off. This is America Reports. So here's what we know so far. The university first sent out a report of a shooter at 12:02 p.m. Eastern time, just after noon. The shooting was first reported at the student union on campus. Students were told to continue sheltering in place as of 12:39 p.m.
And of course, as you monitor social media, you see a lot of the videos that are being posted by students in and around the union there. FSU police, Tallahassee Fire, and Tallahassee police are still responding right now at that scene. FSU police are confirming that they are responding to what they are describing as an active scene. Let's get the update now from our senior correspondent with brand new details. Steve Harrigan joins us out of our Southeast Bureau. What do we know, Steve?
Sandra, all this happened just after noon near the student union in Tallahassee, Florida State University. You can see from the pictures already a very heavy law enforcement presence at the scene, as well as firefighters. A hospital in Tallahassee has said they have been receiving patients from the incident at FSU. Local media is reporting 4 people have been injured from the shooting. That has not been confirmed as yet. The scene seems stable at this point. Police say they have taken 1 person into custody. A shooting, as many as at least 4 injured. Hospital receiving patients from this shooting. Sandra, back to you.
Those are the details right now. Steve, we'll check back in with you shortly. Thank you. Bill.
Thank you. And we want to bring in now our Fox News contributor and former D.C. homicide detective, Ted Williams. Ted, thanks for scrambling to get on for us here as we track this breaking news. Give us your initial thoughts to what you're seeing with these live images here. One of our colleagues, Nate Foy, tells us that he has 2 cousins who are students at FSU, both of them apparently in lockdown right now, one in the gym, one in a lecture hall. Obviously, with these breaking news situations, waiting for details to come in, but there are reports of injuries. Give us your thoughts on what you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm getting reports also, especially from one of the local television stations there, that at least 4 individuals have been hospitalized as a result of the shooting here at Florida State University. They're in a lockdown mode. I understand that schools in that area, high schools and elementary schools, are also in a lockdown area. Law enforcement itself is trying to establish and determine what they have. Do they have actually just one shooter, or are there other shooters? Has the shooter been neutralized? What kind of an arrest has been made? Again, there is confusion on the scene, but law enforcement is certainly there to try to control what is going on there at Florida State University this afternoon.
Ted, we want to deal with what we know so far, and this is a direct statement from the Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare representative. They are taking, and obviously any victims from this. TMH is actively receiving and caring for patients related to an incident that has occurred at FSU at this time. Details are still unfolding, and we do not have specific information to share. However, we want to assure the community that our teams are fully mobilized mobilized and prepared to provide the highest level of care and support to all those affected. As you can see, screen left, that's a live shot where emergency vehicles are still arriving on the scene there. One of our colleagues even sending us, it's a visual. It's an app that actually shows the number of first responders on the scene. It is a lot right now, Ted. Obviously, they got a lot of phone calls when this happened.
Yeah, absolutely. When an incident, unfortunately, of this nature happened, at the initial stages, there's always a great deal of confusion. There's a lot of phone calls that are going out to law enforcement. But as we see here, we see quite a few law enforcement officers, first responders that are there on the scene. And it seems as though some of the individuals seem to be walking in a more relaxed state. So I would have to believe that law enforcement at this stage have everything under control. They are trying just to determine what is going on, and I'm sure that they want the students to continue to be in a lockdown state until they can determine just what is taking place completely there at Florida State University. It is my understanding, guys, that this took place and was centered around the Student Union building. There have been certainly eyewitnesses, from what I've been told, that have been able to assist law enforcement in this shooting at Florida State University.
Yeah, Ted, I'm hearing from one Florida law enforcement source. They do have one person in custody right now, though they can't confirm if that person is a shooter or the shooter. So go ahead and stand by for us. Definitely want to loop you back in. But
thank you for tuning into the live show. Crazy, crazy things happening. It's just wow.
Suspect has been taken into custody after a reported shooting incident at Florida State University.
CNN's Ryan Young is following these developments for us. Ryan, what more are we learning about the situation there at this moment?
Yeah, guys, we continue to work our sources here to try to figure out exactly what's going on. I can tell you around 12 o'clock, an alert went out from Florida State University telling students to shelter in place, that they had reports of an active shooter near the student union. And just in the last 2 minutes or so, we got an update from the Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare that says they are receiving patients from that shooting scene as well. We believe 4 patients have been sent that way so far. I've also been told by a law enforcement source that I've talked to that the shooter has also been taken into custody. We're trying to figure out exactly the extent of injuries and what's going on. There is a massive police presence on that campus right now. Of course, Florida State, one of the largest universities in the state of Florida. The area that you see there is normally bustling with students. If you look at social media, you see dozens of students running. There have been reports of several shots being heard. We know the sheriff's department, the local police department, and the FBI all responding to that area to see exactly what's going on. We have not been told of what the disturbance and how it started just yet. We're hoping for more updates from officials. You do see the ambulances there and the first responders who've decided to go there. I've actually talked to an officer on scene. They were trying to get students from that student union area to safety. Once again, we're told 1 suspect in custody and at least 4 others who have been taken to the hospital. So we're trying to figure out the extent of these injuries, but you see the live pictures right there, the massive amount of police presence at one of Florida's largest universities. And of course, there's a lot of focus on exactly what happened in that student union area. As a person who attended that university, I can tell you that's usually the most active part of that campus. It's really the hub of that university. So many students, especially around that noon time, will be in that area going to lunch or between classes as they hang out throughout the day. So you can understand the amount of pressure that's on law enforcement to figure out if there's any other people who are involved in this. We do know, again, 4 injuries, been taken to the hospital, active shooter in custody. Boris and Erica, we're still trying to develop all our resources to figure out exactly what's going on at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We also want to bring in with us CNN law enforcement analyst Jonathan Wackrow, who's with us. So, as Ryan was just laying out for us there, and we see in these pictures this heavy police presence, we know of at least 4 people, according to Ryan's reporting, who have been brought in for medical attention. A suspect is in custody. That being said, there is this shelter-in-place order. We know a number of people are sheltering in place just from our own reporting as well. How long will it be? What will it take? I guess, what is that checklist to know that there is no longer a threat on campus?
Well, listen, good afternoon. This is a stark reminder that really just underscores the dynamic and unpredictable nature of these horrific events. As Ryan was saying, how active the school university is today, and where the shooting location was around the student union is the nucleus of the school. It draws a lot of attention by students and visitors alike. By example, just look at the school calendar, the event calendar. There are dozens of things scheduled right now that are ongoing at the school that are bringing people there. So it's a very densely populated environment. And law enforcement knows that. That's why you see such a significant response by federal, local, and state officials to respond to this. And that response is really focused on 4 key areas to prioritize how law enforcement is responding to these active shooter situations. First, they want to stop the active shooter in progress. And the good thing here is we know that we have at least one suspect in custody. We don't know, though, if there are other threats that are out there. Police will quickly work to ascertain if this was a lone actor or if this is a more coordinated attack. The second key thing is rescue victims. We heard that there were victims that were sent to the hospital. We don't know their condition, but it is a priority of law enforcement that after they address the primary threat of the active shooting, that they rescue the victims and provide medical assistance. And the fourth is they need to preserve the crime scene. We don't know how large this is, but if this shooter was moving about buildings and throughout the campus, we may have multiple crime scenes that are in place, and law enforcement needs to secure those for any items of evidentiary value. So there's a lot of things that are going on simultaneously with the law enforcement and medical response right now. But from what I have seen and what has been reported, the response and communications that is coming from law enforcement has been almost textbook, a rapid response. They activated their active shooter protocols. Everyone knew their roles and responsibilities. I'm sure that the incident command structure that is typically established for these type of critical events is in place, and we should be hearing more from law enforcement shortly about the current status of the threat.
And we are hearing more from FSU, the university putting out a statement on social media just moments ago saying, continue to shelter in place. Police have responded to an active shooter call at the student union. They go on to say that all university classes and events scheduled for the day have been canceled. We also have with us retired FBI Special Agent Rob D'Amico, who is following the news alongside us. Rob, I wonder, when you consider what an active shooter at a student union looks like, because there have been so many shootings at institutions of higher learning over the last few years, a lot of these soft targets, as they're called, have been hardened up. But I wonder what you imagine the security is like at a student union at a school the size of FSU.
It's just so hard to secure. I mean, it's students walking in, they have backpacks, they have things that, you can hide a gun in, that you're not going to be able to search everything. So again, when you look at what you can secure, you can't secure everything. You can have really good procedures, which I think the last commenter talked about is they reacted well. And the thing is with universities, with their police departments, they go over these. They do tabletop exercises, and you can start telling now that they all understand the different roles and responsibilities that have to get brought in immediately to this. I think one of the big things is we saw with the Chapel Hill shooting that they did not get word out quick enough that someone was in custody, and you started having students actually jumping out of buildings. So hopefully they tell them to stay in place, because that helps the organization getting witnesses and looking at locking things down, but doing it uniformly and how they do it, but at least telling students that someone is in custody so they're not panicked and doing things that are actually more dangerous than sitting where they're at. Because that happened, and I think that was one of the after action reports. And I know all these universities are talking to each other that have shootings, and when they do tabletop exercises and when they review their policies, that they're getting input for the last ones that happened and best actions that were taken.
We also want to go back to Ryan. I'm going to go back to you. I understand you have some new information about what we're learning. What more are you hearing at this?
And I want to say this, coming off that last commentator, which is basically, let's not forget FSU had 3 people shot back in 2014 at the library. This is a university that's paid special attention to trying to deal with active shooters. So just like you said, the massive response there, it is close to the Capitol. I was talking to one of my friends who's on scene there at the student union, and he was actually the source telling me that he was following a blood trail because there was some sort of blood trail that was leading away from the student union. So they are still trying to assess this as we are talking right now, trying to figure out all the pieces and to make sure they have all the victims here. There are a lot of terrified students. Even in the phone call that I had, you could hear people in the background rushing by who were very upset, obviously trying to get away from the scene. So when you add all the pieces together and you know that it's near the state capitol, it's a large university, it's dealt with a shooting back in 2014 before, you can see why there was a massive response, and B, how they got the alerts out very quickly at a campus that's really the lifeblood of that city. When you think about the presence of Florida State, how large it is, and how many people who graduated from that university in that area, there's so many people who work for that university. This really put the entire city on pause when something like this happens.
Important context there. We actually have sound from a witness, a student who shared what they saw. Let's listen.
How are you feeling right now?
Like nervous, I'm scared for my friends, and making sure I'm checking up on them, and I just hope everyone's okay and this gets handled soon.
And you said you weren't on campus when the shooting happened?
No, I was parking my car, walking back, and as I was walking back, I see these group of girls crying, really upset, walking back from the student union, told me they heard gunshots, and they just ran and came back to their apartment where I was walking to.
Yeah. So what's going through your mind seeing that your school has had a shooting?
Honestly, I just hope everyone's okay, and I hope that we can just do better precautions so this doesn't happen again. And I just feel awful for the students on there having to go through these emotions right now, dealing with scared for their lives, honestly. It's really scary.
And you said you had friends on campus at the time?
Yes, right now they're still on campus. They're on lockdown right now.
And you've heard from them, they're doing okay?
Yep. Texted them. They just said they're scared, they're in lockdown, and they just want to go home.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just hope everyone's okay, praying for the people that are injured, and I just hope we can do better in the future.
All right, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you are in Florida and you attend Florida State, well, sorry for what's going on in your school right now. However, ICE smashed a car of a illegal migrant in the United States. Check what happened.
ICE is defending its actions over a cell phone video that shows a federal agent smashing the car window of an undocumented Guatemalan man as he waited for his lawyer to arrive. Juan Francisco Mendez was pulled over by ICE officials in Massachusetts Monday. The Associated Press spoke to his wife, who was in the car at the time he was detained. Listen.
Ellos insistían en que nos bajáramos del auto, pero no bajamos porque ya la abogada nos había dicho. Y nosotros le dije, nosotros no vamos a dar nuestros datos. Nosotros tenemos derecho de permanecer callados, sin que vamos a bajar del carro cuando nuestra abogada esté presente. Y eso le dije a la gente, cuando llegue la abogada vamos a bajar, pero ahora no. Y insistía, entonces ese momento dijeron que como que trataron la manera, le dijeron en otra palabra, pero yo lo entiendo así, de que se bajan a las buenas o se bajan a las malas. Ah, bueno, que lo hagan,
Whoa.
Sentí miedo, sí me dio miedo, pero yo traté de no demostrar ese miedo ante ellos. Solo espero que lo dejen en libertad a mi esposo para que él pueda venir con nosotros y que mi hijo puede estar con él también.
There we go.
Nosotros venimos a trabajar honradamente, luchar por nuestra familia y lo que hicieron o lo que están haciendo en este momento no es justo. No nos merecemos esos tratos que ellos nos están haciendo a nosotros.
CNN has reached out directly to ICE for a statement, but it has not responded. For more on all of this, we're joined by CNN's Priscilla Alvarez. She's here with us in the Situation Room. Priscilla, so we reached out, we tried to get a statement, but they did issue a statement, but they're not responding directly to CNN.
But they did issue a statement, and they said that the actions of the officers in that video that you just watched were, quote, deemed appropriate by the officers on the scene, going on to say that those officers are trained, quote, to use the minimum amount of force necessary to resolve a situation. They also provide a little more background as to the man that they took into custody, Juan Francisco Menendez. He's 29 years old, and they say in the statement, quote, is an illegally present Guatemalan alien who was detained by ICE Boston in New Bedford, Massachusetts, April 14th, going on to say that during the course of the arrest, he refused to comply with officers' instructions and resisted apprehension. Now, his wife talks about this a little bit, and their attorney elaborated to say that when they were pulled over, they did call the attorney. The attorney had recommended to them that they give the business card, her business card, to the officers and told them to remain silent. But as you can see, it escalated there with them smashing the window. Now, the attorney also says, and his wife says, that he has no criminal record, that while he did cross into the U.S. legally, they were trying to adjust his status, and he appears to qualify for a
So she just said he did cross illegally. She wanted to just say that really fast. She said, well, while he did cross illegally, he is eligible for changing some status. It's like, you already said the first thing. Illegally. The first thing you said was illegally, okay?
and told them to remain silent. But as you can see, it escalated there with them smashing the window. Now, the attorney also says, and his wife says, that he has no criminal record, that while he did cross into the U.S. legally, they were trying to adjust his status, and he appears to qualify for a form of asylum. So that was underway when, of course, this happened and he was detained. Now, I will also note that the Department of Homeland Security often defers to Immigration and Customs Enforcement on how they decide to proceed with any type of encounter and their discretion. We saw this earlier in the year with some of the memos that they put out, particularly when doing enforcement, for example, near churches or schools, essentially putting the onus on the officers to decide whether something is appropriate or not. I will also note that not long ago, we were similarly covering the story of a Salvadoran woman who was in the vehicle with her daughter in Maryland, and her window was also shattered, and she was taken into custody. We've continued to report on what exactly it is that they have held her for, but certainly this is something that we have seen over time now.
And since they insist it was appropriate for them to smash the window and damage the car, I take it ICE is not going to pay to repair the damage.
That would not be something that they would do, no.
Yeah, all right. Well, it's probably several $100s in damage to that window and to that car.
I want to turn to this ICE video of an agent smashing
he
the
said
window
it's barely
of a Guatemalan man
$700.
who said
What?
he was waiting
He
for
works
his
at a
lawyer to
mechanic store.
arrive. That attorney told CNN what she told her client as ICE surrounded the car. Take a listen.
You have my card, you have the red card, which says they choose to exert their right to remain silent. I said, show them that, tell them I'm on my way, and I will explain your situation to them. But you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have your attorney present with you.
Based on the information we know, did ICE act lawfully in this situation?
It's just hard to tell now. And you know, Pam, this is really a Fourth Amendment, it's like search and seizure exam question because of how many very fraught things here. One, ICE agents have a tremendous amount of authority to act and to use the sort of least aggressive force that they can. Now, it's hard to say that they did that here, but remember, this is an individual in an automobile, which, you know, could be a means of fleeing, could be itself a weapon. Both sides have compelling arguments here. Now, that video, based on what we've seen, does not look good for the government. But again, it's just hard to know what transpired before it. But just stepping back, even no matter how this plays out, even if he does recover from the government, if he is unlawfully present in the country, winning from the government doesn't cure that. He might still end up removed.
The wife of Maryland man Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador per the administration's own admissions in court, is hitting back at the Trump administration. And it follows the administration's latest attempt to portray her husband, who has not been accused of or charged with any crime, as a violent criminal and member of MS-13. An informant did say he was a member of MS-13 in 2019, something Abrego Garcia and his family have denied.
The Department of Homeland Security yesterday posted a 2021 civil protective order Jennifer Vasquez Sura filed against her husband to X, prompting this response. In a statement to CNN, she says, and I'm quoting now, "After surviving domestic violence in a previous relationship, I acted out of caution after a disagreement with Kilmar by seeking a civil protective order in case things escalated. Things did not escalate, and I decided not to follow through with the civil court process. We were able to work through this situation privately as a family, including by going to counseling. Our marriage only grew stronger in the years that followed. No one is perfect, and no marriage is perfect." That is not a justification for ICE's action of abducting him and deporting him to a country where he was supposed to be protected from deportation. Kilmar has always been a loving partner and father, and I will continue to stand by him and demand justice for him, close quote. That statement, by the way, coming on the same day Maryland Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador in a direct appeal to the government there for Abrego Garcia's release. Listen.
I'm asking President Bukele, under his authority as president of El Salvador, to do the right thing and allow Mr. Abrego Garcia to walk out of a prison, a man who's charged with no crime, convicted of no crime, and who was illegally abducted from the United States.
And we are joined now by CNN congressional correspondent Lauren Fox. So, Lauren, Democrats are clearly seizing on this, right? You have Senator Van Hollen going to El Salvador, and he also said that he was denied a meeting with Abrego Garcia. What more do we know?
Yeah, I mean, basically, Van Hollen went down to El Salvador trying to do some of the constituent service work that we know that lawmakers do all of the time. It's not always so high profile, but this is exactly the kind of situation where a U.S. senator or congressman would get involved on behalf of their constituent. So he flies down to El Salvador. He meets with the vice president of the country, but he's unable to access a meeting directly with Abrego Garcia. He says he's asked repeatedly to have a phone call with him or for his family to have a phone call with him. Here's what he said happened when he made that request.
I asked the vice president if I could meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia. And he said, well, you need to make earlier provisions to go visit CCOT. I asked him if I came back next week, whether I'd be able to see Mr. Abrego Garcia. He said he couldn't promise that either. So I asked him if I could get on the phone, either video phone or just a phone, and talk to Mr. Abrego Garcia. He said maybe if the American embassy were to ask, maybe that could happen.
So obviously not a lot of answers, not a lot of clarity on when they can make contact with Abrego Garcia to check on his health, to check on his well-being, to find out how he's doing. But also, this is something that we expect Democrats are going to continue to seize on. Lawmakers are on recess right now, but earlier we saw a letter sent from two House Democrats, Robert Garcia as well as Maxwell Frost, who were requesting that there be a CODEL from the Oversight Committee to go down to this maximum security facility and meet with Abrego Garcia, as well as check on the welfare of others who were deported to El Salvador.
How is this even like headline news? This is headline news, ladies and gentlemen. And when things happen to Americans by illegal migrants, they don't really make headline news. But now it's like, Trump administration is deporting illegal crosser. Like, Trump administration is protecting illegal migrant because they crossed illegally and now they're trying to recorrect. And it's like, okay. But when something happens, for example, on the subway in New York by an illegal migrant, for example, burning that lady alive last year, or was it in January? It's probably in January on this, or last year, December. Burnt this lady alive in the subway. She was sleeping. Illegal migrant did that. It wasn't mainstream media newsworthy, but now Abrego Garcia has been deported. Woe unto Trump. He's spoiling the country. Trump this, Trump that. This is why he won. Bunch of.
Speaking of the students, one student spoke earlier to our affiliate there on campus, and we took some of it, and here is more of it from earlier. Listen.
How are you feeling right now?
Like nervous. I'm scared for my friends. I'm making sure I'm checking up on them, and I just hope everyone's okay and this gets handled soon.
And you said you weren't on campus when the shooting happened?
No, I was parking my car, walking back, and as I was walking back, I see these group of girls crying, really upset, walking back from the student union, told me they heard gunshots, and they just ran and came back to their apartment where I was walking to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's going through your mind seeing that your school has had a shooting now?
Honestly, I just hope everyone's okay, and I hope that we can just do better precautions so this doesn't happen again. And I just feel awful for the students on there having to go through these emotions right now, dealing with scared for their lives, honestly. It's really scary.
And you said you had friends on campus at the time?
Yes, right now. They're still on campus. They're on lockdown right now.
And you've heard from them? They're doing okay?
Yep. Texted them. They just said they're scared, they're in lockdown, and they just want to go home.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just hope everyone's okay, praying for the people that are injured, and I just hope we can do better in the future.
And another interview happening live right now with our affiliate. Let's dip in and listen here.
In shock. I didn't think this could happen at Florida State. I mean, we're a pretty safe campus, but yeah, this is just unheard of to me. I never had been in a school shooting before, active shooter. This is first time for me, and I was honestly in shock. My hands were shaking, just adrenaline kicked in, and I really didn't know what to do. I started tearing up, I was scared, to be honest. Yeah.
This guy almost broke the bro code. He almost broke the bro code just a little bit. But I understand, bro. I understand. Okay. I understand. But you almost broke the bro code a little bit, though. But I get it, though. He was scared. Thankful he's alive and well. Crazy what's going on at Florida State University.
And so you just heard the shots. You didn't see anything.
Yeah, I didn't see the shooter, but I saw the kids running away. I heard some screaming. Yeah, and the shots, 3 rounds of 5 shots, and then 7 shots. So it must have been some back and forth going on. Yeah.
And how are you doing now?
Good. I've recovered a lot. A lot of people have been texting me. People from out of state, University of Michigan friends have been texting me. People from South Florida have been texting me. People from high school have been texting me. Doing a lot better. It's been a great community that has surrounded me since then. I definitely didn't think I'd be traumatized as much as I have. Definitely not being on the scene, but being kind of away from it. But yeah, it's been scary. So I'm doing a lot better now. Yeah.
Glad you are.
Is there anything that you wish would have happened differently?
Yeah, no, I think the police responded very quickly. I think they did a great job. I don't really know what could have happened. Maybe there's more police presence at certain areas for there not to be a shooter. I think that's just the most obvious thing, but yeah.
All right, anything else you want to add? Anything maybe else?
No, that's great.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What was your name?
Yeah, I'm Cody.
Cody?
Yes.
Cooper.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
So you hear it there. That's a interview wrapping up with a student who you can sympathize with as he's talking about the initial response he had when he heard the gunshots and heard what was happening, that fight or flight response, right? He said his adrenaline was pumping. He was shaking. He started tearing up. A lot of people know what that feels like when you do get that adrenaline pump going on.
Hey, everyone. I'm
All right. With everything going on in the United States, Nancy Pelosi, yes, you heard me right. Nancy Pelosi is gearing up. She's getting ready, ladies and gentlemen. She's getting ready. She just announced re-election plan. Nancy Pelosi is in her 80s, and she's actually running for re-election. I see.
20 minutes now past the hour on this holy Thursday morning. Democrats continue coming apart at the seams. DNC's 25-year-old chair, David Hogg, he's age 25, now taking aim at the party's incumbents with a major bankroll of younger challengers. Chad Pergram watching this from D.C. How's this going over, Chad? Good morning there.
Good morning, Bill. Well, Democratic infighting is so bad that they are undercutting one another. That's why there's concern about David Hogg spending millions to launch primary challenges against Democratic incumbents. Younger candidates like 26-year-old TikTok influencer Kat Abugazele is challenging 80-year-old Democrat Jan Schakowsky. Schakowsky has been in office longer than her challenger has been alive.
Unfortunately, this party has become one where you have to look to the exceptions for real leadership, as the majority work from an outdated playbook. We need a makeover, which means we need a vision that's bigger than what we've been told is possible.
Democrats are torn about leaning on veterans who serve the party well and changing the guard. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi intends to run for re-election next year.
Talk about the California Democratic Party. 40 years ago, again, before many of you were born, I was retiring as the chair of the California Democratic Party.
You could call them the odd couple. 35-year-old Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and 83-year-old Bernie Sanders are barnstorming the country. They connect with progressive voters.
Our message to Musk and Trump are: we are not going to allow you to destroy the Veterans Administration or Social Security. They also have incredible and unprecedented political power.
Now, the DNC contends it is up to primary voters, not the party, to choose the candidates. But this underscores division in the party as Democrats try to gain a toehold against President Trump. Bill?
All right, Chad. Well, watch it. Thanks. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
I'm Steve.
I mean, how is Nancy Pelosi still going to run again? Like, is this even possible in her 80s? I get it. A lot of people like her, especially in the Democrat Party. They love her. She's a good, she knows how to unite the party. That's just the facts. When it comes to Nancy Pelosi, people listen to her in the Democratic Party. And she just knows how to rally people around. So I guess they don't want to lose her and her voice. And I'm sure she's connected with a lot of big donors. And of course, to run an election, you need huge, big donors. And she's an OG in the party, so she knows these people for a fact. So I'm guessing is keep her there so this old money can stay in the party or around. But people are tired. Americans are tired. They want new, fresh faces. And also, they don't want people who have been in politics for 40 years. She just said she was the chairman 40 years ago or something like that. So it's like, what's up with the new people, like the new, fresh ones coming up? The Democrat Party is just going bonkers moving forward. Unless the Republican Party, they have so many people, so many new stars, so many emerging new stars. All right, HHS. Here we go. Bobby
CNN
Kennedy
has reviewed an internal document from the Trump administration that outlines plans to slash the federal health budget. So that could mean that the nation's public health policy could be drastically reshaped under Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. I want to go live now to CNN health reporter Jacqueline Howard. Jacqueline, how deep are these potential cuts and how could we all be impacted by them?
Well, Pamela, as for how deep these cuts are, they do include a more than 40% reduction in the budget for the CDC, more than 40% reduction of the National Institutes of Health's budget. And keep in mind, this document is a preliminary memo. It's dated April 10th. So it's not clear whether this is a final plan, but if it is adopted, it could include those significant cuts, which could impact programs that involve HIV prevention, gun violence, injury prevention, youth violence prevention. We're even seeing that under the NIH, it could reduce the number of institutes from 27 institutes down to 8. And this seems to be part of the Trump administration's overall plan to transition the Department of Health and Human Services to what they're calling the Administration for a Healthy America, or AHA. And this document gives us a glimpse into what federal health agencies might look like under that transition. We're also seeing potential impacts on global health and even childcare programs like Head Start. So this does give us a glimpse into what the health policies may look like under the current administration.
I'd like to get some more right now on the massive budget cuts potentially in store for the nation's public health institutions. Internal Trump administration documents reviewed by CNN detailed $40 billion in reduced funding for the Department of Health and Human Services. Joining us now is the Democratic Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. If these cuts are enacted, what kind of impact is that going to have on public health here in the United States?
Well, first of all, it's a 44% cut in the Centers for Disease Control. That's tracking measles, tracking COVID, tracking any disease which is inside of our country. It's the early warning system. It's the public health system that was challenged as part of the COVID crisis in 2020, 2021. And it not only shouldn't be dismantled, crippled, it should be reinvested in. We've learned the lessons of the past in terms of what the CDC was not able to do. Instead, they're dismantling it. On top of that, they're proposing a 40% cut in the National Institutes of Health research into Alzheimer's, cancer, heart disease, into Parkinson's disease, into all of the diseases that run through the genes, the families of everyone in our country. NIH isn't just the National Institutes of Health, it's the National Institutes of Hope. It gives families hope that they will find the cure for those diseases. And this is a 40% reduction in hope because a whole generation of young researchers will now walk away because there won't be funding for them. And we're going to delay finding the cure for Alzheimer's and cancer and heart disease and so many other diseases as well. And on top of that, they want to eliminate Head Start. Eliminate Head Start. That's 800,000 young people in our country who get extra educational opportunities, help with their nutrition, to give them a head start. What's wrong with the Head Start program? There's never been an argument made that it's not working. They want to eliminate that as well. And again, well, it's all in order to have a tax break for millionaires and billionaires. They have to find the funding for those tax breaks, and they want to take it out of NIH, out of the CDC, out of Medicaid, out of the Affordable Care Act, out of veterans' health benefits, and they need all of those hundreds of billions of dollars to take care of billionaires and millionaires. That is absolutely going to make America sick again. We're going to defund the healthcare infrastructure in our nation.
Joining us right now for some more perspective on this is the former Secretary of Health and Human Services under President Obama, Kathleen Sebelius. Secretary, thanks for coming in. I have a couple similar yet distinct questions on this. If you're back in the position of running HHS, and I said to you, Secretary, you should cut a third of your budget when you're running HHS, what would you say to me, your gut reaction?
My gut reaction, Kate, is that would be a real disaster for the American public. HHS basically sends money to states and tribes and local communities to run a whole variety of health programs. So this is not money spent inside the DC Beltway. It is money that keeps Americans healthy. And I thought that was the goal of this administration.
So that's the Secretary you should. And what if I said, Secretary, you must cut a third of your budget as you're running HHS? Where do you begin?
Well, I think every secretary spends time trying to make the agency more efficient, trying to, drive the programs as quickly as possible that meet the top priorities. I don't know how you cut a third of the budget and 25% of the workforce without really calamitous results. And that's what this administration is proposing to do. And frankly, Kate, I don't know why. I think the question of why needs to be at the top. Are the programs not working for people? Mental health programs? Are kids not being well educated in Head Start? Are parents not involved? Do you not want any restaurant inspections anymore because, Americans can just roll the dice when they go out to dinner and hope that the kitchen is actually clean and safe? So some of these eliminate. Do we not want research to go on in colleges all over this country that keep Americans healthier, that bring breakthrough medicines to market? Those are the kind of cuts that are being proposed. CDC is the backbone of public health. Slashing that budget by 40% will decimate healthcare in every community in America. So I don't know why this is.
Everybody's talking about, HHS, Bobby, whatever, Trump, and the whole Trump administration. They're saying, Trump is moving too fast, or he doesn't know what he's doing. Now, Bobby, whatever. The fact is, unhealthy food and processed food is what we all know. Okay. We all know what's on the shelves. All right. We know it's ultra processed food, 70% of what we eat. The reason that is even a conversation is because conservatives, Republicans truly brought it up. Some Democrats as well, but mostly Republicans, conservatives said, you know what? You can't be having this much ultra processed food on the shelves. And talking about education, school choice, these are bills that Republicans, conservatives actually pushed. So when people say, what are you talking about? Everything y'all are complaining about now, and then you also want a solution to it. For example, like the trade deals that we have with the rest of the world. Trump is the only guy that has the guts to stand up and say, you know what, let's fix it. And everybody wants to complain. Liberals, you want to complain. And then you go back and say, China makes everything. They're trying to fix it. You wanted to go back to China, don't you? Because you don't want to farm. You don't want to do factory jobs. Right? That's what people say. Americans don't want to put iPhones together. Who told you? You don't want to do it. There are people who want to do it. I have worked in a factory. Okay. So it's like, because the only argument is like, are you going to do the job? Are you going to pick the raspberries and the avocados? Just like some people are engineers, some people are doctors, some people are, bankers, some people are farmers, some people are, whatever they do. So just because you are not going to do it doesn't mean there are not many, 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 many millions of people who actually are depending on these jobs coming into the United States. So please chill, take some Kool-Aid, drink some Kool-Aid, and let this man cook. Now the Prime Minister of Italy came to the United States to negotiate. Everybody wants to renegotiate their trade deals with the United States. Why? Because Trump is on their ass, basically.
Happening, and I don't know the end goal.
So there's there's that aspect of it, and then there's also what's happening already within the agency. There's an example I want to ask you about because a key NIH official has just resigned. He's a top researcher on food policy, Dr. Kevin Hall. He says in his resignation that his work was being censored. And this is work of the one you think the new HHS secretary would be excited about. He was conducting some of the world's only controlled trials on ultra-processed foods, something RFK is very interested in. But when Hall's study did not show, basically the worst of the worst, did not show that the brain was lighting up in response to sugar like it does to addictive drugs, he says HHS stepped in, saying this: HHS denied an interview request from the New York Times and contacted the reporter directly to downplay our study results because our data might be viewed as failing to support preconceived HHS narratives about ultra-processed food addiction. My written responses to the reporter's questions were edited and submitted without my approval. If that's the case, that means what to you when it comes to trusting RFK Jr.'s version of this agency?
Well, unfortunately, Kate, I think we've already seen undermining of scientific evidence by the first Trump administration, a determined effort to counter scientific facts with a narrative that really didn't make sense, according to scientists, really didn't provide cures. I think now we have a secretary who not only is a vaccine skeptic, and we see that in his public comments on measles and outbreaks. He's congratulating doctors for curing measles when scientists will tell you very clearly there is no cure for measles. But, you know, to doctor and alter scientific facts, to withhold information from people that don't comply with the facts that as you want them, to make up a narrative and then really tamp down any evidence to the contrary, that narrative is really dangerous. It gives Americans false choices. You don't get reliable information. People who are, you know, trying to feed their kids in a healthy fashion, trying to make good decisions, are now left wondering whether or not the information they're getting makes any sense at all, whether they're getting nutrition facts. So I think it's a very dangerous path for a new secretary to start down, interfering with scientific evidence, trying to censor material, whether it's about medicines or foods or research at large. That's a very dangerous precedent to set.
Yeah, the management of such a massive agency is something that I know I've leaned on you several times now to get that perspective, because it's the management and how they are restructuring the agency that is a huge part about this discussion and the overhaul that's.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. With that being said, a lot is going on. Luigi Manion, what's going on with Luigi Manion?
All right, former Washington Post columnist, technology reporter for the New York Times, Daily Beast, and Business Insider, Taylor Lorenz made a lot of headlines Sunday with her comments about the alleged United Healthcare CEO assassin, Luigi Manion. Take a look.
So you're going to see women especially that feel like, oh my God, right? Like, here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems this morally good man, which is hard to find.
Okay, she claims she was just expressing the views of his supporters.
Oh my God. You could never make this up. You could never make this up, yo. Liberals could never make this up. Luigi Manion shot the CEO of United Healthcare. This man had kids. Listen to what this girl said about Luigi.
Columnist, technology reporter for the New York Times, Daily Beast, and Business Insider, Taylor Lorenz made a lot of headlines Sunday with her comments about the alleged United Healthcare CEO assassin, Luigi Manion. Take a look.
So you're going to see women, especially, that feel like, oh my God, right? Like, here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems this morally good man, which is hard to find.
What? What are you saying?
She claims she was just expressing the views of his supporters, but remember, just hours after the murder, she responded to a story about Blue Cross Blue Shield no longer covering anesthesia for some full-length surgeries, writing, quote, "And people wonder why we want these executives dead. Want them dead." She later tried to clarify her comments, but appeared to double down, publishing a piece on Substack that said in part, quote, "If you have watched a loved one die because an insurance conglomerate has denied their life-saving treatment as a cost-cutting measure, yes, it's natural to wish that the people who run such conglomerates would suffer the same fate." Sunday's comments came roughly a week after she expressed disappointment in a post on X when she learned a tweet claiming Joe Biden had not died was not true. Remember, back in November, she posted saying, quote, "Joe Biden is a war criminal who should never know peace." Technology, online culture journalist Taylor Lorenz is here to explain. All right. Try and explain this to me. You feel joy. Those are your words. So you felt joy over the murder of this father. No, those are the words you use. You can shake your head all you want.
No.
We have the tape. And number one, then you go on to say, and people wonder why we want these executives dead. Then you posted an image of the Blue Cross CEO, Kim Keck. Now, let me ask you, what part of this United Healthcare CEO being a father and a husband don't you understand? And what part of you having a choice of what healthcare provider you choose to deal with or not do you not understand? Because you don't have to go with United. You don't have to go with Blue Cross.
So let me just be extra clear. Never did I say that I felt joy in his death. I said very explicitly, if you play the full segment, and actually people can watch that segment on my YouTube in full, not the edited version that Piers showed. I said that I felt joy, along with millions of other Americans, that the brutality of our healthcare system was finally being acknowledged. I believe that our current healthcare system is murderous, right? I mean, we have uninsured Americans with a 40% higher risk of death compared to insured counterparts.
Taylor,
Nearly 70,000 Americans die
but that's
each
not
year
the topic.
due to lack of health insurance.
Taylor, that's not the topic. If you can talk about health care, I don't like the health care system either, and a lot of people have experienced frustration like you're saying. That, to me, is separate and apart from the debate of praising, calling handsome, smart, intelligence, being joyful over the death and assassination of innocent people. And that's what your comments did. Your comments basically put your seal of approval on murder and assassination. And I'm trying to understand whether you like this guy, like the way he does business or not, you're advocating and putting a smiley face on assassination. And I'm trying to understand what is in your soul that doesn't understand he's a father and a husband here. What are you missing? There seems to be a missing chip with you.
Yeah.
Sean, if you'd like to hear, I will need to talk in order to explain.
I don't want the rationalization. I want you to think about what you said. Explain what you said.
I know exactly what I said. Again, I'm attempting to right now. So I'd ask you to please give the space and try to listen here. As I said, once again, never did I say I felt joy that this man died. I said, again, that I felt joy that millions of Americans or millions of really wealthy Americans and privileged Americans are forced to wake up to the reality that nearly 70,000 Americans die each year due to lack of health insurance. I do feel joyful that that is an issue
to the
being talked
healthcare
about.
debate. Why would any human being with a conscience and soul be joyful over an assassination of any person? Why would anybody be joyful over that?
Well, actually, that's a good question. Why don't I explain?
It's a great question.
The other So the other clip that you played is not me saying my own beliefs. I have quite different beliefs from that. What I'm describing, and if you watch the full segment, not just the clip, you'll see that I'm describing the mentality of these fangirls that show up outside Luigi's court and show up outside his jail cell. Those girls are not me, okay? We have very separate belief systems, but I was describing how they believe. And now let me explain to you why people in America feel this way. People in America feel this way, and they feel outraged because, again, every penny of the $22 billion in profit made by United Health was made at the expense and suffering of others. And that is violence. Our healthcare system is also violent. And that is a violence that people in the mainstream media, such as yourself, continue to refuse to acknowledge. So if you're going to talk about death and violence, it's
Taylor,
crucial to talk about the death and violence of our healthcare system. Pardon?
There's a better way than saying that Luigi Manion is a revolutionary who's famous, handsome, young, smart, and seems like he and seems like he's a morally good man. If you want to have legitimate criticism, you could write an intelligent piece saying, here is what's wrong with America's healthcare system. Like, for example, I want healthcare savings accounts. I would like to see more of the use of telemedicine. I believe in healthcare cooperatives. I know one that works. Josh Umber, Atlas MD, average person, 24-hour concierge care, $50 a month. There are better ways to do it. That's a legitimate debate. But that's not how you're saying it. You're saying it in ways that are sympathetic to the people that are taking action.
I'm describing
handsome, good-looking. This is why people are happy and joyful.
I'm describing the belief system of his supporters, Sean. Oh.
Why don't you condemn them? Will you say that anyone that praises this guy is lacking a soul, a conscience, and a heart? Do you agree with that statement?
Well, what I will say, Sean, once again, is that I believe in free speech.
A very direct question. Will you say that anyone that's praising this guy doesn't have a soul, a conscience, and a heart?
I don't believe in things like, religious things like souls and all of these things.
I'm not asking about religious. If you can't have sympathy for a dead father and husband, do you lack a conscience, a soul, and a heart? That's a simple question. You're a smart woman.
Well, let me respond to you, Sean. I believe that every one of the 70,000 Americans that die each year because of lack of health insurance also has a heart.
You're back to healthcare and not answering my question. I've done this 29 years, Taylor. Answer the question. If you think it's okay and you celebrate assassination, are you lacking a conscience, a soul, and a heart?
I mean, who knows, Hannity?
I think once again you're conflating me explaining the ideology of the women that
you are trying to rationalize them. If you support assassination, Taylor, answer the question. If you support assassination of innocent people, are you lacking a conscience, a soul, and a heart? Simple question. Go.
I believe that the assassination of innocent people, if we want to talk about the assassination of innocent people, I believe that the tens of thousands of Americans that die each year because of the lack of health insurance, that is, to me, a violence in itself. That is assassination. These health insurance.
I'm willing to have that discussion with you, but we can't have that discussion until you say
can't have a discussion when you're not willing to hear, Sean, what my beliefs are, and you
condemn people that have been committing acts of. Do you condemn the people that tried to assassinate Donald Trump, or would it be a good thing in your mind? Or would you understand why people want to kill him, or understand why people want to kill Elon Musk? Do you understand them too? Are they handsome people too, smart people?
Well, so let me actually talk to you a little bit about that. So I cover violent extremism. I've witnessed violent extremism for many different factions, right, of the political system. If, for instance, somebody shows up and shoots an abortion provider dead, I want to understand their ideology. I'm a reporter. I want to understand their belief system, and I want to understand what led them there. Now, let me tell you something, because it's interesting you bring up the assassination of Donald Trump.
If you resort to violence and you kill innocent people, aren't you lacking a conscience, soul, and a heart? What's so hard? Why can't you answer that question?
Well, once again, when you talk about souls, that's not really my specialty. But what I do specialize in is extremism.
Obviously.
We are at a time right now.
By the way, I would say that's obvious.
Okay, thank you. Well, we are at a time right now when we're witnessing actually one of the biggest memes on the internet right now is about assassinating Trump and Elon. These are posts with millions of likes that are advocating for the assassassination of the president.
Simple question. Do you condemn that? Can you take a moral stand and condemn that?
What I condemn is the violence of our system, and I would love for you to acknowledge that.
I'm not asking you to condemn the system. Taylor, do you condemn people that call for assassination?
She doesn't.
You're going to ask if I condemn Hamas next. This is crazy. I would love for you to acknowledge what I'm actually saying, Sean, and we seem to be talking past each other. I want to talk about the fact that half of all adults are delayed because of cost. We need to talk about that 70% of Americans, by the way, believe that the insurance company practices are responsible in part for Thompson's death. These are signs of an unhealthy...
You want to put a rationalization. I am saying anybody that wants to assassinate any innocent person is wrong. I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican or a father or a husband. And I speak that is a simple truth that anyone with a heart would easily say on national TV that you're having a hard time with.
If you want to prevent further deaths and you don't want gun violence in the street, which I think we both are aligned in wanting, right? We want peace. We do not want violence in this country, no matter what side of the political aisle it's coming from. You need to understand motives and you need to understand the ideology that people have. And that is what my job is.
Why don't you first start with the basics? I'm going to help you out. Why don't you first condemn those that want to be involved in assassination and stop talking about them being handsome and smart and intelligent and
I didn't say that I believe that. I am describing his supporters who do believe that. And I think it's very important, just the way that I would try to understand the ideology
Will you condemn his supporters? Last question.
Unite the Right rally.
No, she
won't.
I would
try to understand the ideology of anyone that would advocate for violence in this country, no matter what it is.
Do you condemn his supporters?
No,
Once again, I believe in free speech. I believe in free speech. If they have not committed any crimes, his supporters are outside just saying things. They're not committing any sort of acts of violence.
You won't condemn his supporters. You won't say what they're doing is repulsive.
Once again, Sean, I believe in free speech and the right to free expression. I seem to be in the minority
There's a difference between assassination and speech. Do you condemn those that support violence and, in this case, praise Luigi Manion?
You asked again.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, I can't take that no more. Bye. Go. So this is the OG participating in an Easter prayer service.
Please welcome Charles Billingsley.
Good evening. Wonderful to be here. Such an honor. Thank you for having me, Mr. President. We'll start this evening by bowing our heads, and I'm going to sing a prayer over us. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed.
And thank you, Mr. President, for inviting us here. And I think I can speak on.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a real honor, and we've all worked very hard to get here. And I want to thank you for the tremendous support that we had. Just about 88%, I'd say that's good. I said, why didn't we hit 90? But it's pretty good. And all friends and everybody in this room is a very special friend. I want to pay great homage to the White House. There's no place like it. I've been in many houses. I've seen the nicest of the nice, and there's nothing like it. And really what it represents. And being here with you in the middle of Holy Week as we remember two of the most monumental events in all of history, the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I want to thank Pastor Paula White and Reverend Franklin Graham, all of the incredible, respected, highly respected members of clergy and friends, just friends of great faith. Many thanks as well to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He's been fantastic. Many faith leaders that are here tonight. Angel Mom, Patty Morin, who's been through hell. Where's Patty? Patty, stand up, Patty. Please. Yes, her incredible daughter. And her daughter's looking down on Patty today. This was some day for you. And we appreciate it, Patty, and we're all with you 100%. And you are indeed an angel mom. Thank you very much. And a very special thanks to Charles Billingsley for the magnificent performance. Thank you, Charles. That was very good. Nearly 2,000 years ago, during the sacred week, the living Son of God entered Jerusalem in triumph. Soon after, the Savior of mankind, who brought truth and light into the world, was betrayed, arrested, and tried, beaten, and nailed to a cross and crucified. For our sake, he gave up his life, and as the very great Reverend Billy Graham once said, God proved his love on the cross when Christ hung and bled and died. It was God saying to the world, I love you. Those are beautiful words from a great man, Franklin, right? A great man, Franklin's incredible father. I went to Yankee Stadium with my father many years ago to watch your father. And you think we have big crowds today? It was some crowd. Never forget it. So thank you very much, and thank you for being here, Franklin, very much. 3 days, your father would be very proud of you, by the way. Incredible job you did. 3 days later, Christ's followers found the empty tomb. Jesus had defeated darkness and death and promised new life to all of humankind. And that's what we celebrate each year at Easter as we joyfully proclaim on Sunday, He is risen. The death and resurrection of Jesus are the essence of the Christian faith. Whether rich or poor, healthy or sick, young or old, or in times of peace or war, Christians everywhere find solace and hope in the knowledge that Christ died for them and that they could be united with Him in heaven. And that's what we want. That's what we all want. The miracles of Holy Week set in motion a transformation in human existence. Countless millions of Americans have been moved by Christ's example to heal the sick, defend their families, lift up their communities, and make our country stronger, better, and greater than ever before. With God's grace over these past 3 months, and we have had a great 3 months. They say maybe the best 3 months ever for a president and an administration. It was really great. We have fantastic people, and they're people that believe like you do. But we've achieved more than most administrations, they've been saying, do in 4 years or even 8 years, just in a short period of time. And I think there's a whole new spirit in our country, and I think there's a whole new respect for our country. Our country was not respected 5 months ago, 6 months ago, although I think November 5th did a lot to get that respect, Franklin. I think it was a big day. I hope is going to go down as one of the most important days in the history of our country, November 5th. We're restoring our prosperity, securing our borders. We're rebuilding the U.S. military. I did it once, now I'm going to do it again, and even more so. We're standing up for a persecuted Christian and so many Christians that have been persecuted all over the world. So horrible what's happened. And defending religious liberty. We had nobody fighting for our Christians in other parts of the world that were being so incredibly destroyed, killed, injured, hurt, but they died. So many died. You wouldn't think that could happen in this time, in this sort of modern time. I proudly created the White House Faith Office and a brand new DOJ task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. And there is anti-Christian. You don't hear about that very much, but there is anti-Christian bias. We're stopping the radical indoctrination in our schools and supporting school choice. And we're going to be moving our education department and various educational departments down to the states where they belong. We spend more money per pupil than any country in the world, and we don't get the answer. We are in the lower tier of 40 nations, the 40 nations that they rate. And I think when we do this, it's going to make a tremendous difference. Think of it, we spend more per pupil than any country in the world, and yet it's Denmark and Norway, Sweden, even China does very well in the top 10. And so we can't blame it on size. We're big, but China is really big. And we're going to be there. We're going to be there soon when the states run their education department instead of some bureaucrat in Washington. It's going to make a very big, I think it's going to make a very big difference. And I also, and this was a very easy one for me, I guess some people still fight it because I saw on television today a Democrat congressman fighting so hard. I banned men from women's sports. Seems easy. And I signed an executive order making it official and the official policy of the United States that God created two genders, male and female. That's not too difficult. So there's so much to celebrate this Easter. This is really, I hope, going to be one of the great Easters ever, because we have something going that I don't think this country has seen in 100 years. And as we gather with family and friends, we'll not forget the true source of our joy and our strength. America has put our trust in God. It will always be in God we trust. We will never change that. You know, there's a movement to change it. It will not happen. We won't let that happen. Can you imagine a movement to change that? Robert, you're not happy about that when you hear that. Look at him. He's getting angrier and angrier. We can get angry too, can't we, huh? No, it's never going to change. And with God's help, we can overcome every challenge, triumph over every evil, and restore the spirit of faith in the United States for generations to come. We have a very simple slogan, make America great again, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're making America great again, and I like to add that I really believe greater than ever before. So once again, let me wish you all a very joyful and blessed Easter, and I would now like to ask Pastor Jensen Franklin, a supporter right from day one, he's been here, I think, Paula, from the first moment that we started, and who would have known that it was going to turn out this way, but the support I've had from evangelicals, Christians, and everybody, people of faith, really, has been incredible. I believe it's been unprecedented, actually, by a lot, not just by a little bit. So, Pastor Franklin, if you would, please come up. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was sitting there and I saw the card they gave me where I was sitting at table 1 from Eastern North Carolina originally. And God called me to preach out in a cornfield. And to be here being honored to represent ministers across the nation who don't get an opportunity like this. We want to say thank you. This is so, you don't have to do this. You're too busy to do this. But we want to say thank you. We see all that you do, all your family goes through. And we're so thankful God assigned an angel to stand between you and that bullet. To God be the glory. And Jesus walked into a room like this with religious leaders named Peter, James, John, Matthew, Mark, Luke. And some might have been on the back table and some might have been watching in a ministry somewhere that nobody's never heard of, and you pastor 50 people and you do it with all of your heart for the glory of God. And Jesus walked into a meeting like this and he took a pot of water and he went from table to table, washing the feet, giving dignity and honor to everyone, and also washing and cleansing. And that's what this is all about this week. And to have a president and his first lady make a statement like you made on social media about this week, you just don't understand how God is using you. There's a movement going on in our churches, Mr. President, and I think this group here can testify. We've never had attendance like we're having. We're running over. Our buildings are packed. God is moving in this nation mightily, and we're thankful for that. And if you're watching right now and you're broken and you're hurting and you're lonely, or maybe you're in a hospital room, or you're wondering, is there any more to life than this? You need Jesus. He's not a religion to us, and we don't do this for careers. But he bled and he died and he rose from the dead to give us all that blessed hope. And I thank him for it. Lord, we love you. We thank you. We're so honored. And we pray for President Trump and First Lady Melania and their precious family. We do hold them up in this room tonight, and we believe that you have them in a bubble of protection. Keep them and watch over them. Give him wisdom, give him favor, and let your goodness and your mercy reign in this nation like never before. And we'll give you the praise. Bless this food. Bless this evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you, Paula. We love Paula White. Isn't she amazing? Paula White.
All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you for double tapping your screen, subscribing to the channel. A lot is going on. Jeffrey says coordinates to enforce the order against Trump. Okay, here we go. Hakeem Jeffers just said the court needs to enforce the order on Trump.
Now I want to turn to our guest, the House Minority Leader, Democratic Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York. Thank you so much for being here, sir. I do want to start on the meeting that the president is having today shortly. In fact, they're beginning to talk to each other as we speak, and that is about tariffs. My question for you is whether or not you see any situation where tariffs are a useful tool. President Biden, of course, kept many of President Trump's first-term tariffs in effect.
No, Dana, great to be with you. As many of us have said on the Democratic side, tariffs, when appropriately utilized to promote American competitiveness, American jobs, as well as American businesses, can be one of several tools that the U.S. government can use in ways that are designed to help elevate economic prosperity. That's not this in terms of what is taking place. Donald Trump is clearly crashing the economy in real time, and he's driving us toward a recession. The manner in which these tariffs have been unleashed on the American people will result in the largest tax increase on everyday Americans since at least 1968, and it's going to cost everyday Americans over $4,000 per year if these tariffs are fully implemented. And that clearly is a problem. That's not what the American people signed up for.
And I know that you and other Democratic leaders believe that the best way back to the majority in the House, which is your number one political goal, is to focus on bread and butter issues. The economy, even sort of an extension of that, potential cuts to Medicaid is a big part of what you're talking about during this recess, and you will continue to do that because in 2018, focusing on health care got Democrats the majority back. Is that where you are convinced the Democratic energy is right now?
And this is not about the 2026 midterm elections. That is going to be important, and the political calendar will take care of itself. I've been in the district over the last few days. We had a town hall meeting that was incredibly well attended on Tuesday, and the issues that were brought up to me by the people that I'm to represent include the attacks on Social Security, the attacks on health care, the failures of this administration related to the economy, and the fact that everyday Americans, in so many cases, are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck. This is what is on the minds of the American people. Earlier today, as part of the House Democratic Medicaid Matters Day of Action, I met with constituents at a community health center in Bedford-Stuyvesant, some of whom were in tears because of the concern that their health care could be ripped away, which would impact their ability to receive the treatment and the medication and the interventions that they need to survive. This is a life or death matter for many of the people that I represent and folks all across the country. And so that's why, as Democrats, we're focused on these issues.
Now, earlier this morning, I was just speaking about this with Jeff Zeleny. The president lashed out at the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. He posted, quote, "Powell's termination cannot come fast enough," and that Powell should lower interest rates. Now, a lot of economists are warning that we are heading for a recession. I just heard you mention that. You blame the president, but given those warnings, regardless, is the president right that the Fed should lower interest rates?
Monetary policy in this country, and then we have fiscal policy. And the Federal Reserve has been set up to manage monetary policy in a manner that meets the needs of the American people and meets the moment. And Chairman Powell, who is a Republican, is someone who should be left to do independently what the Federal Reserve has been set up to do. The problem that we confront in this country is that Donald Trump, this is someone who promised to lower costs on day one. Not my words, his words. That he was going to deal with the high cost of living in the United States of America. And yet, we haven't seen from these Republicans a single bill, a single executive action, or a single administrative order designed to actually lower costs. And in fact, we know that costs aren't going down, they're going up. Inflationary pressure is going up, consumer confidence is going down, the retirement savings is going down, and the economy is going down as well because of the reckless fiscal policies of Donald Trump and House Republicans.
So, I totally hear what you're saying about the Fed being independent, but it has not stopped politicians, not just Donald Trump, but politicians on both sides of the aisle from having an opinion on where interest rates should be. You want to weigh in on that?
We all want to lower interest rates in terms of the impact that that has on everyday Americans. But that ultimately, of course, is going to be a decision that the Federal Reserve will need to make. It certainly is something that should always be a consideration. But we have a broader issue that we need to confront in America, which is the high cost of living. That, of course, impacts housing costs, it's grocery costs, it's childcare costs, it's insurance costs, and it's utility costs. And the Republicans haven't done a damn thing to address it, despite all of their talk, all of their promises made to the American people last year. We're ready as Democrats to try to do something in this area, but we have no Republican partners.
I want to turn to the administration and the judicial branch of the United States government. The Trump administration is finding ways to defy the courts on a few fronts right now. One is refusing to bring back Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Another example is continuing to block the Associated Press from covering the president, despite a judge ordering the White House to treat the AP like other news organizations. Sir, I know that you have said that the president defying court orders would create a constitutional crisis. Are we there?
I think what we need right now is certainly, we're in a crisis across the board, right? I mean, that is obvious for everyone to see. This is not normal. The president is assaulting the economy, assaulting Social Security, assaulting healthcare, assaulting the American way of life, and assaulting our democracy. None of this is normal. It is all a crisis. Now, with respect to what we need to deal with in terms of the situation with the courts, the Supreme Court needs to aggressively enforce its judicial orders. The White House is seeking a confrontation with the courts, then the courts need to lean into that. We will have the back of the courts, and it needs to use all of the tools available to it, like contempt.
For example.
No, they won't.
Contempt.
No, they won't.
In terms of the people within the administration who are failing to adhere
Man, Hakeem, you know you ain't.
to these judicial orders, or who are actively continuing to propagate unlawful or unconstitutional actions at Donald Trump's direction.
Well, we did see one example of the threat of contempt yesterday. A federal judge did that with regard to those flights that left after he signed an order saying that they shouldn't go. But you think that that threat should go all the way up to the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land?
Well, in the case of Mr. Abrego Garcia, there was a Supreme Court decision that was issued. And so when you have a Supreme Court decision that was issued instructing the administration to facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's return, and it seems to me that ultimately the court is going to need to aggressively enforce its decision. When you've got lower courts who have issued orders, then of course the jurisdiction will fall with them.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding you right. Are you saying that the Supreme Court should hold President Trump in contempt, should hold his cabinet members who were involved in this in contempt?
The Supreme Court needs to take a close look at enforcing its orders, and that is generally going to involve not the president, of course, at this moment in time, but it's going to involve cabinet secretaries and other administration officials who are responsible for the actual execution of these orders or the non-compliance.
How is that not a constitutional
crisis? Of course, the courts are going to have to be. I said that we are in a crisis across the board. We are in a crisis across the board in every way possible, including the assault on the democratic way of life. Now, the courts are going to have to aggressively enforce its. We are in a crisis. We've apparently been in a crisis, I think.
So now we are in a crisis. When we had a president who was falling off stairs, a president who was, walking into the Amazon rainforest, we didn't have a problem then. A president who was sleeping on the world stage, we didn't have a problem. Well, apparently, now that we're trying to fix the trade deals with tariffs, we have a problem. I see. Now that we're trying to figure out the fraud in government, wasteful spending, now we have a problem. I see. Anyway, OG is meeting in the Oval Office with the press as usual, working hard. Here we go. This is live.
If they do go higher, do we retaliate more?
Well, at a certain point, I don't want them to go higher because at a certain
fishes for the sashimi quality fish, so it's all fresh. It's an ice fishery, and it's been around since what started in the early 1900s. And
well, it's been around for millions of years.
Right, exactly.
Long before us.
Right, exactly.
That's great.
So, that's where you're getting your sashimi and your swordfish from. Most of the swordfish that you eat on the mainland comes from our fishery.
They shut down also areas off Maine, that the Maine lobster.
Oh, yes, yes.
And I think we're going to have to open that one up really quickly, too. But we did it, and then after the election, which was totally rigged, they went out and they put it back again. We'll have that for you next week. It was like 500 square miles or some ridiculous thing like that. And Canada fishes there, but we're not allowed to. Can you imagine? They restricted it, but Canada fishes there. Please.
Mr. President, this is such a great honor. Today in American Samoa, we're celebrating the 125th Flag Day. It's the first day celebrating when the U.S. flag was first raised there. At this very moment, they're celebrating that. So this is a monumental occasion for the people of American Samoa, and we are truly.
So this is a big thing. That's going on right now.
Because we're a tuna-dependent economy. 99.5% of our exports is tuna.
99.5%? Well, what about the other half?
And then about 80% of our private employment is related to the tuna industry. So yes, this is a big thing for the terrorists.
So what's this going to do in terms? It's so interesting to me. It's so horrible and so stupid. It's so stupid. We're talking about a massive ocean, and they're forced to travel 4 to 7 days to go and fish in an area that's not as good and is probably a little more dangerous. The whole thing. So, what's this going to? How is this going to affect your business? It's going to be many more. I mean, you're going to be able to do much more business, I would think, right?
Yes, we would think that this will definitely result in more fish deliveries, and more fish deliveries is more economic gains for the territory.
Tell us what happens when you say China and other people steal your fish. In other words, you're forced to go to areas that are very dangerous.
Well, because of the monuments and overlays of sanctuaries, our fishermen mostly fish on the high seas. And if you look at Global Watch, you will see China, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan all fishing on our very edge of the 200-mile zone. So our fishing, we're in competition with them. And also, you know, their dumping of their fish on U.S. markets lowers the price for our fishermen. And that's another difficult thing that we hope you'll take care of too.
And what about the stealing of your fish?
Well, you're competing with tuna in a very competitive market, right? So they're camped right outside, like you said, they're camped right outside our EEZ.
And what happens?
And they're taking our fish because it's migratory. Tuna is migratory.
Because we can't fish in our zone. The fish goes to whoever.
And they come in. They come in and they get a night. Most
Yes, they do. They come in, they take the fish.
That's a common, well-documented problem.
Does anyone, I mean, it's so interesting. Even you have to find this one interesting. So by doing this, we're going to give you back your lives. And you've been doing this for thousands of years in this area. And
Absolutely.
then along comes Biden and Obama, and they say you can't do it anymore, right?
This is fish baby fish.
Yeah.
Fish baby.
So
That's right.
what's the level of and this is a risky question, but what's the level of popularity of Trump and Samoa versus the Democrats?
77%.
For Trump?
The poll shows for Trump. Yes,
Wow.
that's right. 77%.
Well, we go up to 90 tomorrow.
Yes, go up to 100.
100.
Well, it's an honor. I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because it's just an honor. Here's one of the boats that they have. Look how beautiful that is down. They use it for a beautiful cruise to take 7 days before they can do the first fish. Can you believe it? So now you'll be able to do it like almost immediately, right?
We'll get much closer, absolutely. So if the fish is there, we can make more trips and deploy more people.
Do you know through sonar, radar, everything, do you know where the fish are? I mean, can you see that?
You get educated guesses, so you get all kinds of different reports, plankton and all kinds of stuff, and they can.
It's a beautiful life. You wouldn't choose any other life, right?
It's a very unique life. I love what I do. I really do.
I mean, if you could have a life like some beautiful leisurely life in Washington, D.C., where you get mugged when you go to work, but other than that, you love politics. If you could live in the White House, you'd take exactly what
Might take it under consideration.
All right, let's do this, right? That's an honor. You've seen that signature, and I don't use AutoPen. You know, like Biden. Biden uses AutoPen. I think And what is the second one, please?
We have one more also relating to fisheries, sir. This is an executive order on seafood competitiveness. Currently, we have two basic problems here. One is that the American seafood industry is dramatically overregulated. Our fisheries are dramatically overregulated. The other is that we have unfair trade practices from our foreign trading partners relating to the seafood industry. So this executive order is going to attempt to address both of those. The Department of Commerce, other federal departments and agencies are going to work with the fisheries to establish common sense regulatory reforms.
How long will that take?
I think we're expecting to move as quickly as we can. Yes, sir.
You know what you know exactly what we're talking about already, right? It's crazy. The regulation.
It is.
Secretary Lutnick is going to fast track that, I can assure you.
Howard, please, go ahead.
Sure. So you just heard us, the economic zone around Hawaii and Samoa is huge, and it's exclusively ours. So why wouldn't we have our fishermen fish there? I mean, imagine saying our own fishermen, every country in the world, they all fish the 200 miles off their coast, and we were stopping our own fishermen from going off the coast. It's totally the opposite of common sense. That's why President Trump has changed it. Now let's talk about regulation. If you're not even going to let them fish, imagine the regulations that have been written to stop our fishermen from just surviving and thriving. We have the greatest coasts in the world with the greatest fishermen in the world, and we need to let them do their great jobs, raise and capture fish, bring them to our tables, have America have the greatest fish in the world, which we have, and then let them export all these other countries, right? They stop us from exporting. That's going to be over with your leadership and your trading policies. We're going to open all of these markets, and we're going to let our fishermen thrive and prosper, and we are going to have lower cost fish, more of it, and the freshest fish in the world. And this is just common sense for the United States of America.
So could I ask, it's so interesting. Yes. So you take these massive areas of water, and other countries are allowed to fish in them, right?
No, they sneak in, they poach.
So they're not allowed, but they do it because they don't care.
But they fish in their own zones, sir.
Yeah.
So we're systematically disadvantaging our fishermen by not allowing them to fish in parts of our exclusive economic zone, while other countries have their own exclusive economic zones, and they're fishing the heck out of those.
So they're totally benefiting.
Now that you're allowing the U.S. fishing fleet to fish, they also serve as observers. And when they see poachers, they report them to the authorities. And so they are a big help to the U.S. Coast Guard.
Right.
And so it's great for our U.S. food security.
It's great.
I mean, we should have a trade surplus in fish, and we have a big trade deficit.
It's crazy.
Because of all this. It's just crazy. Nothing.
Okay.
Familiar.
This is an easy one.
Very easy.
Hi, Mom. This is an easy one. This is crazy, huh?
Well, 80% of the seafood in the U.S. is imported.
Yeah.
All right. What is going on here? Here we go. Oh, I guess that was a bad feed. Sorry, guys. That was a bad feed, okay? We're going to get you the real feed right here. I'm a full-time daddy, and I got to do this as well. So thank you for being patient. You guys are the best. Thank you. Double tap your screen,
Foreign
subscribe to the
countries
channel.
buying US Steel.
Let's go.
US Steel was one of our great companies of the world. When you go back 80 years, and it was the biggest, strongest, most powerful company in the world.
This right here is still live right here. We go all the way back. Let's see how far away. Yeah, let's go.
Back again.
We'll have that for you next
And it was
week.
like 500 square miles or some ridiculous thing like that. And Canada fishes there, but we're not allowed to. Can you imagine? They restricted it, but Canada fishes there. Please.
Mr. President, this is such a great honor. You know, today in American Samoa, we're celebrating the 125th Flag Day. It's the first day celebrating when the U.S. flag was first raised there. At this very moment, they're celebrating that. So this is a monumental occasion for the people of American Samoa, and we are truly
So this is a big thing that's going on right now.
because we're a tuna-dependent economy. 99.5% of our exports is tuna.
99.5%?
Yeah.
Well, what about the other half?
And then about 80% of our private employment is related to the tuna industry. So yes, this is a big thing for the Tariffs.
We are a one industry economy.
Right, what's this going to do in terms? It's so interesting to me. It's so horrible and so stupid. It's so stupid. We're talking about a massive ocean, and they're forced to travel 4 to 7 days to go and fish in an area that's not as good and is probably a little more dangerous. The whole thing. So, what's this going to? How is this going to affect your business? It's going to be many more. I mean, you're going to be able to do much more business, I would think, right?
Yes, we would think that this will definitely result in more fish deliveries, and more fish deliveries is more economic gains for the territory.
Tell us what happens when you say China and other people steal your fish. Well, in other words, you're forced to go to areas that are very dangerous.
Well, because of the monuments and overlays of sanctuaries, our fishermen mostly fish on the high seas. And if you look at Global Watch, you will see China, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan all fishing on our very edge of the 200-mile zone. So our fishing, we're in competition with them. And also, you know, their dumping of their fish on U.S. markets lowers the price for our fishermen. And that's another difficult thing that we hope you'll take care of soon.
And what about the stealing of your fish?
Well, you're competing with tuna in a very competitive market, right? So they're camped right outside, like he said, they're camped right outside our EEZ.
And what happens?
And they're taking our fish because it's migratory. Tuna is migratory.
Because we can't fish in our zone, the fish goes to whoever.
And they come in. They come in the dead of night. Most
Yes,
of
they
them
do.
go out.
They come
Nobody
in,
catches
they
them.
take
They
the
steal.
fish.
Yeah, that's a common, well-documented problem.
Does anybody, I mean, it's so interesting. Even you have to find this one interesting. So by doing this, we're going to give you back your lives. And you've been doing this for thousands of years in this area. And
Absolutely.
then along comes Biden and Obama, and they say you can't do it anymore, right?
This is fish baby fish.
Yeah.
Fish baby.
So
That's right.
what's the level of and this is a risky question, but what's the level of popularity of Trump and Samoa versus the Democrats?
77%.
For
The
Trump.
poll shows for Trump. Yes,
Wow.
that's right. 77%.
Well, we go to the 90s.
Yes, they'll go up to 100.
Oh my God.
Well,
Oh,
it's an
gee.
honor. I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it because it's just an honor. Here's one of the boats in there. Look how beautiful that is down. They use it for a beautiful cruise that takes 7 days before they can do the first fish. Can you believe it? So now you'll be able to do it like almost immediately, right?
We get much closer, absolutely. So if the fish is there, we can make more trips and deploy more people.
Do you know through sonar, radar, everything, do you know where the fish are? I mean, can you see that?
You get educated guesses, so you get all kinds of different reports, plankton and all kinds of stuff, and they can. Temperature.
It's a beautiful life. You wouldn't choose any other life, right?
It's a very unique life. I love what I do. I really do.
I mean, if you could have a life like some beautiful leisurely life in Washington, D.C., where mugged when you go to work, but other than that, you love politics. If you could live in the White House, you'd take exactly.
Might take it under consideration.
All right, let's do this, right? That's an honor. You've seen that signature, and I don't use auto pen. Like Biden. Biden uses auto pen.
Auto pen, yeah.
And what is the second one, please?
We have one more also relating to fisheries, sir. This is an executive order on seafood competitiveness. Currently, we have two basic problems here. One is that the American seafood industry is dramatically overregulated. Our fisheries are dramatically overregulated. The other is that we have unfair trade practices from our foreign trading partners relating to the seafood industry. So this executive order is going to attempt to address both of those. The Department of Commerce, other federal departments and agencies are going to work with the fisheries to establish common sense regulatory reforms.
How long will that take?
I think we're expecting to move as quickly as we can. Yes, sir.
You know what I mean, you know exactly what we're talking about already, right? It's crazy. The regulation.
It is.
Secretary Lutnick is going to fast track that, I can assure you.
Howard, please, go ahead.
Sure. So you just heard us, the economic zone around Hawaii and Samoa is huge, and it's exclusively ours. So why wouldn't we have our fishermen fish there? I mean, imagine saying our own fishermen, every country in the world, they all fish the 200 miles off their coast, and we were stopping our own fishermen from going off the coast. It's totally the opposite of common sense. That's why President Trump has changed it. Now let's talk about regulation. If you're not even going to let them fish, imagine the regulations that have been written to stop our fishermen from just surviving and thriving. We have the greatest coasts in the world with the greatest fishermen in the world, and we need to let them do their great jobs, raise and capture fish, bring them to our tables, have America have the greatest fish in the world, which we have, and then let them export all these
greatest
other countries,
fish in the world.
Right? They stop us from exporting. That's going to be over with your leadership and your trading policies. We're going to open all of these markets, and we're going to let our fishermen thrive and prosper, and we are going to have lower cost fish, more of it, and the freshest fish in the world. And this is just common sense for the United States of America.
So could I ask, it's so interesting. So you take these massive areas of water, and other countries are allowed to fish in them, right?
No, they sneak in, they poach.
So they're not allowed, but they do it because they don't care.
But they fish in their own zones, sir.
Yeah.
So we're systematically disadvantaging our fishermen by not allowing them to fish in parts of our exclusive economic zone, while other countries have their own exclusive economic zones, and they're fishing the heck out of those.
So they're totally benefiting.
Now that you're allowing the U.S. fishing fleet to fish, they also serve as observers. And when they see poachers, they report them to the authorities. And so they are a big help to the U.S. Coast Guard.
Right.
And so it's great for our U.S. food security.
It's great.
I mean, we should have a trade surplus in fish, and we have a big trade deficit.
It's crazy.
Because of all this. It's just crazy. Nothing.
Okay.
Familiar.
This is an easy one.
Very easy.
Hi, Mom. This is an easy one. This is crazy, huh?
Well, 80% of the seafood in the U.S. is imported.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? We import seafood, and we have the greatest coast
So
and
what-
fishing in the
Okay,
world.
so in Maine, they do something similar. I think it's like 500 miles or something, some crazy thing. And Canada goes and they fish there, other people fish there, Europe fishes there. The Maine lobster. You can't get Maine lobsters because Maine's forced to go for days out to some other area that's not as good. We have to free that up too.
We'll have that on your desk next week, I promise.
The Maine lobster, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
You did it last time, and they undid it.
Canada fishes there.
Biden undid
No, we're not allowed to, yeah. I did it last time in Maine, and they undid it. That's why we have to stay president for a long time. great honor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Take
Mr.
care of
President.
yourself. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Great job.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Beautiful. You guys look like a real athlete right there. There, look how it is.
I get a shade too.
Mr. President, breaking news, a short time ago, the Supreme Court agreed to hear oral arguments in the case about ending birthright citizenship. How confident are you that the court will rule in your favor and allow that order to end birthright citizenship to go forward?
Well, you're just telling me that for the first time. I am so happy. I think the case has been so misunderstood. That case, birthright citizenship, is about slavery. If you look at the details of it, the signings of it, everything else, that case is all about slavery. And if you view it from that standpoint, people understand it. But for some reason, lawyers don't talk about it, the news doesn't talk about it. That's not about tourists coming in and touching a piece of sand and all of a sudden they're a citizenship. You know, they're a citizen. That is all about slavery.
Touching a piece of sand and you're a citizen.
Even look at the dates on which it was signed. It was right at that era, right after the Civil War. And if you look at it that way, the case is an easy case to win. And I hope the lawyers talk about birthright, citizenship, and slavery, because that's what it was all about. And it was a very positive, it was meant to be positive. And they use it now instead, not for slavery, they use it for people that come into our country and they walk in and all of a sudden they become citizens and they pay a lot of money to different cartels and others. It's all about slavery, and if you look at it that way, we should win that case. Okay.
Mr. President, following that, we have a great relationship with the president of El Salvador. Will you ask him to release Abrego Garcia so that you can facilitate his return here to the United States? And do you believe he deserves due process here?
Well, I must tell you, I have to refer again to the lawyers. I'll have to do what they asked me to do. I had heard that there were a lot of things about a certain gentleman, perhaps it was that gentleman, that would make that case be a case that's easily winnable on appeal. So we'll just have to see. I'm going to have to respond to the lawyers.
Mr. President, we're learning that there are now 2 deceased following that shooting at Florida State University. Following and amid that, is there any changes that you want to see to gun legislation? Anything you see broken with gun laws in our country?
I'm going to have to look. I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. I have been from the beginning. I protected it, and these things are terrible. But the gun doesn't do the shooting. The people do. It's a phrase that's used probably too often. I will tell you that it's a shame. I'm just hearing about it now. I just hear about it. I know the area very well. I know the school very well. I know everything about it. It's Florida. And we'll have more to say about it later.
What do you mean when you say there will be more to say about it?
Only in terms of what happened. As far as legislation is concerned, this has been going on for a long time. I have an obligation to protect the Second Amendment. I ran on the Second Amendment, among many other things, and I will always protect the Second Amendment.
Mr. President, a question about the United Kingdom. Reports that you're going to go and stay with the King in September. Can you confirm that? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I was invited by the King and by the country, great country, they're going to do a second, as you know, a second fest. And that's what it is. It's a fest, and it's beautiful. And it's the first time it's ever happened to one person. And the reason is that we have 2 separate terms. And it's an honor to be, I'm a friend of Charles. I have great respect for King Charles and the family, William. We have just really just a great respect for the family. And it's a very great honor that, and I think they're setting a date for September.
It's going to be a smaller visit initially and then a bigger state visit to follow after. Is that the plan?
Yeah, they say that it's going to be, I don't know how it can be bigger than the last one. The last one, was, as you know, was incredible. But they say it's going to be even more important. So it's a great honor to be so chosen.
President Trump, yesterday you spoke with Japan. Is the Nippon steel deal part of the tariff negotiations? Did you discuss that with them?
It could be, but I doubt it. I mean, I think we're going to view it separately. We want U.S. steel to remain in the hands of the United States and people from the United States. And great respect for Japan, but we don't want a foreign country buying U.S. steel. U.S. Steel was one of our great companies of the world. When you go back 80 years, and it was the biggest, strongest, most powerful company in the world. And we're going to make it very strong and powerful again without Nippon. But if Nippon wants to come in, and I hear they're working on it very hard, I have great respect for Nippon Steel. I know a lot about it. But they can invest and they can do lots of things, partnerships, but we want to have U.S. Steel remain in this country.
So is that a stipulation you would put on these tariff negotiations?
I guess we could talk about it with regard to tariffs, Howard. I mean, it's something that could be a part of it, but tariff negotiations are actually simpler than that. I mean, we're going to set a number and people are going to pay that number, or they're going to decide to go elsewhere. If there is such a place, there really is no elsewhere, I think.
Mr. President, in the first term, your Attorney General apologized to Tea Party groups who have been targeted by the IRS under the Obama administration. Why is it okay for the IRS to now be looking at changing the tax status of Harvard because of policy disagreements you have with the university?
So, you know, I had dinner last night with a lot of pastors and ministers and people of faith, and there were like 32 of them. And it was beautiful in the Blue Room. And they said, sir, I was targeted by the IRS. And the FBI came in, sir. And I've been going through hell for years. And somebody overheard that statement and they said, oh, that happened to me too. Another one overheard, oh, that happened to me too. It was the Biden people. And they had 7 or 8 of them. We're going to be reporting it very soon. I said, this has to be reported. These are ministers, pastors, evangelicals. They were targeted by the Biden administration, which was a disgraceful administration. Well, I was targeted more than anybody in history. I think you probably know that. I hope you admit it, but you might not. But I was targeted more than anybody in history. But it was interesting because one pastor told me, and another one heard it, oh, me too, and me too, me too, me too. All of a sudden, they're all, and one of them spent all of his money, everything he had on lawyers, for 3 years, he said. It took place almost immediately after the election. After the election, when Biden came in, unfortunately for the country, sadly for the country. So when you ask me that question, I immediately say, let's switch it around to tell you what happened last night. And not only that, we're also finding that many people just having to do with Trump support have gone through hell. And they've used the IRS for purposes of something that's very illegal for them to have to do.
What are you trying to
It's a very illegal, it's a very, very illegal thing to do, what they did. And I think it's such a shame. That was long what?
If that was wrong, why are you considering changing the tax status of Harvard?
Because I think Harvard's a disgrace. I think what they did was a disgrace. They're obviously anti-Semitic. And all of a sudden they're starting to behave. But when you see what they were saying, what they were doing, when you see the way they took care of events, when you watch that woman, that horrendous president that ruined the image of Harvard, maybe permanently,
horrendous
in Congress, in the halls of Congress, when you take a look at what happened there, it was horrific. And, you know, I've looked at a lot having to do with it. I'm not involved in it. It's being handled by lawyers. I read about it just like you did. But tax exempt status, I mean, it's a privilege. It's really a privilege. And it's been abused by a lot more than Harvard, too. By a lot more than Harvard. So we'll see how that all works out. I don't think they've made a final ruling. I don't believe they've made a final ruling, but it's something that these schools really have to be very, very careful with. Very anti-Semitic when you take a look, whether it's Columbia, Harvard, Princeton. I don't know what's going on, but when you see how badly they've acted, and in other ways also. So we'll be looking at it very strongly.
Subject on the taxes.
Like I always say, you can hate Trump, you can hate him, you can say whatever you want to say about him, you can disagree with him, but one thing you could never say is, this man is not effective. He is absolutely 1000% effective. He is an effective human being, an effective leader, an effective president. Everybody's talking about the United States. Everybody's trying to come visit in the Oval Office. Like you saw the Prime Minister of Italy today. She was in the Oval Office. I don't want to say kissing the ring, but she was damn near almost kissing the ring. You know what I mean? Like, she admired Trump in the Oval Office. Even when the media was trying to attack Trump, he was so cool, calm, collected. She saw that and she was like, I'm glad this is the leader of the free world. I mean, it's just inevitable how hard this man has been working. And, well, it's inevitable the results for American people because this guy has been working hard since he got inaugurated. Look, he's been working hard before he got inaugurated, actually, because he was doing 2, 3, 4 campaigns, 2, 3, 4 events per day before he became the president of the United States. Now he's the president. He was inaugurated on January 20. Since then till now, today is the 17th of April, so over 100 days, a little bit over 100 days. But this guy has been doing 2, 3, 4 events still every single day. Just today, this is his third event for today. He met with the Prime Minister of Italy. He had press conference earlier with the cabinet members, and now this is the third one. This is just another day in the office for this guy. This guy works so hard. You can say anything about him. You don't like him, is whatever, is he bankrupted his casinos, is a failed businessman, or whatever you want to say. Oh, this is that. But you could never say this guy isn't effective. The whole world is basically talking about the United States. Every stock market on earth is literally responding to what Trump is doing. The decision is making. The trade deals is trying to negotiate. Every stock market on earth, China, Japan, the United States, European Union, every stock market in the world is reacting, is responding to what Trump is doing. And yet, y'all want to talk about this guy. He ain't, no, man. He's absolutely effective. And I'm glad this is my president.
What are the other groups you'd like to see that status removed from? Could we expect an executive?
Well, we'll be making some statements, but it's a big deal, and they're so rich and so strong, and then they go so bad. They've earned so much by being a member of this country, you know, a member of this group, this beautiful group of people in this country, and then they go and they abuse their power like that. I think it's, you know, I think it's very sad.
Are we talking about immigrant rights groups, environmental rights groups?
Could be. I mean, look, environmental. I have a group named Crew. You ever hear of it? I think it's CREW, and they have a guy that heads Crew. It's supposed to be a charitable organization. The only charity they had is going after Donald Trump. So we're looking at that. We're looking at a lot of things. But if you take a look at Crew, what they've done, and I think it was a very big abuse, but we're going to be finding out pretty soon.
Can you explain the disconnect between your conversations with President Xi, when those potentially could happen, and why they haven't happened yet?
Well, you don't know whether or not they've happened.
That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, I've never said whether or not they've happened, but I have a very good relationship with President Xi, and I think it's going to continue. And I would say they have reached out a number of times.
Xi or they?
Well, the same. I view it very similar. It would be top levels of China. And if you knew him, you would know that if they reached out, he knew exactly. He knew everything about it. He runs it very tight, very strong, very smart. And yeah, we're talking to China.
So they've reached out in recent days or recent weeks?
Excuse me?
They've reached out since the 145% tariffs?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Do you believe
a lot?
Do you believe
a lot all the time? We're talking.
Have you ever talked directly to President Xi?
I don't want to say that. Yeah. It's just not appropriate.
But you're speaking.
Sorry, has he called you directly, President Xi, or reached out to try to facilitate a conversation?
Well,
I'm not going to tell you that.
Pretty obvious that he has, but we will.
They said pretty obvious.
It's not that important because honestly, we're going to have a deal. I believe we're going to have a deal with China. And if we don't, we're going to have a deal anyway because we're going to set a certain target, and that's going to be it. You have anything to say about that, Howard?
I think our tariff policy around the world has every country in the world coming in and talking to us. It is incredible. We had country after country in yesterday. We are confident that we will work out something with China, and the president knows what he wants to do. And I think he knows it better than anybody else in the world. And we are confident that this is going to work out well, both for the United States of America. I'm sure he'll work it out with China. But the amount of other countries who are working with us is incredible. And I think it's really going to work for the American farmers, for our ranchers, for our fishermen, for our businesses. The scale of companies coming to America just every day, like even this morning we were talking about Whirlpool, and then we were talking about car companies opening. The scale of factories coming to America is mind-boggling, driven by Donald Trump's tariff policy, which has got the world coming and finally respecting the United States of America.
President Trump, you said
And by the way, there's never been anything like it. We have at least $7 trillion of new businesses coming in. If you go back and look at others, I mean, in years they wouldn't do anything like that. So, and this is in a matter of weeks, so it's been pretty amazing.
You said we're talking, so China and the U.S. are talking on tariffs.
Oh, sure.
Do you believe then that they won't go higher than 125%? We've heard Chinese officials say that. And then, like, what happens if they do go higher? Do we retaliate more?
Well, at a certain point, I don't want them to go higher, because at a certain point you make it where people don't buy. So I may not want to go higher, or I may not want to even go up to that level. I may want to go to less, because, you know, you want people to buy. And at a certain point, people aren't going to buy. And it's actually up. It's actually up to 145%, because you have the 20.
You previously said that you would consider reducing tariffs on China to get a tic-tac deal done. Is that still on the table as of now?
Well, we have a deal for TikTok, but it'll be subject to China, so we'll just delay the deal till this thing works out one way or the other. And I think it's a good deal for China. The TikTok deal is very good. TikTok is good for China, and I think they'd like to see us do a deal, especially the deal that we have pretty much done with some of the best companies in the world.
If they agree to sign the deal, would you take that into consideration?
I think it would be something we discuss, because it's a natural. If we're making a deal, I guess we'll spend 5 minutes to talk about TikTok. It wouldn't take very long.
Can you give us a sense of how far along these negotiations are with China? Are they in the early stages, or are you inching closer now to actually making a deal on tariffs?
I think that we will make a deal with China. I think we've had some very good talks, but we will have some very good talks remaining. And, you know, I view it, and some people say, oh, rush. I think we have a lot of time. I think we have plenty of time. But we have very, very good. You saw Japan was here yesterday. We had Italy today. We had a great conversation with the Prime Minister. We've had very good talks yesterday with Mexico. Talking with everybody. You know, the problem is it's only so many hours in the day. I think we're going to make a deal with China. We're going to make a deal with everybody. And if we don't make a deal, we'll just set a target, and we'll live with that, and it'll be fine too.
How much time do you think you have?
I would think over the next 3 or 4 weeks, I think maybe the whole thing could be concluded. You have to understand, we're a big, if you think of us as a big, beautiful department store before that business was destroyed by the internet. We're a big, beautiful store, and everybody wants a piece of that store. China wants it. Japan wants it, Mexico, Canada, they live off it, those two. Without us, they wouldn't have a country. And everybody wants a piece. And at a certain point, if we don't make a deal, we'll just set a limit. We'll set a tariff, we'll set some parameters, and we'll say, come in and shop. They may not like that, and they may find it, or the market may find it too high, you know, more likely the market, but the market may find it too high, or the country may find it too high. Then they'll come back and say, well, we think this is too high, and we'll negotiate, or they're going to say something else. They're going to say, well, let's see what happens. But they always have a right not to do it. So they can say, well, we don't want it, so we're not going to shop there. We're not going to shop in the store of America. We have something that nobody else has, and that's the American consumer. And I had the most successful 4-year period in the history of this country, and I think we're going to blow it away this time. But there is a little bit of a transition, and we're going to have that little transition, and it's not much of a transition. You know, if you look right now, we're getting 25% on cars, right? We're getting 25% on steel. We're getting 25% on aluminum. We're going to have some other things that we're going to be adding in the not too distant future because we want them to be made here. The medicines, the drugs, pharmaceuticals are going to be done, and computer chips, et cetera, et cetera. And because of that, we have the biggest computer companies in the world coming in from Taiwan and other places, and they're building in Arizona and lots of other places. We're number one in AI by far. We're leading China by a lot, by tremendous amounts. We're going to supply electricity at levels never supplied before. They're going to build their own electric. We're going to let them become a utility, essentially. And it's going to be amazing for the country. They're going to build their own electric plants. We have to double up our electricity to remain number one in AI. We're going to have to double up our electricity take our whole country. We're going to have to double up our electricity. Think of that. And probably even triple it up. And we're going to let them build their own electric plants with their plant that they're building for the AI or whatever they're doing. Never been done before. We're going to get them quick approvals. It's going to be very clean, going to be very nice. And we're going to get them very fast approvals. And people are investing in this country like they've never invested before. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. It is currently 5:57 p.m. And of course, today's date is the 17th of April, 2025. Yes, y'all. God bless you. Thank you. Double tap your screen. Subscribe to the channel. So, Monday is Easter Monday, and we have 3 tickets to the White House. Easter egg hunt at the South Lawn in the White House in DC on Monday. So I plan on taking my daughter and my mother-in-law to the White House on Monday. So yeah, it's a little hectic this past few days. Well, this whole year has been hectic because the news I got in January really broke me down. But God is in control. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, and believe in Almighty God. God is the greatest. God bless you. God bless America. And thank you to the veterans, and thank you to the military personnel. You protect the homeland. And shout out to the OG, the 45th, and now the 47th President of the United States. Shout out to C. Shelley. Shout out to Mr. Busky. Shout out to everybody who tuned in. God bless you. Thank you for joining the memberships. It is $4.99. God bless you for supporting. You guys are awesome. Thank you. And tomorrow or next, I am going to be putting out a video of my preparation to DC for the Easter egg hunt. I hope you guys enjoy it. But yeah, I'm just trying to put this together for you guys and also for myself. So in future, I can watch it and be like, oh yeah, we had our 2025 Easter egg hunt in the White House, and my daughter is 5 years old. And yeah, so that's going to be an experience for her and her grandma, and as well for me. So God bless you guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. And turn on your notification bell. We're going to be back here. I got to take my daughter to gymnastics class in about 30 minutes. Love you guys. See you guys soon. Stay up.